So I will now reconvene the general session. Will the recording secretary please call roll?
Kirsten Barnes.
Here.
Catherine Williams Brown. C. Michael Cooney.
Here.
Marisol de la Torre Escobedo.
Here.
And Marie Francoise. Makita Gwynno Shire.
Present.
Johanna Harwick.
Here.
Alicia Hine. Terry Jackson.
Here.
Alicia Hine.
Alicia, you're on mute.
Alicia,
Bonnie
can
Clatt. I will mark her. I
hear
saw
us.
her. Yes.
Okay.
Bonnie Clatt.
Present.
Kevin Kuhn.
Present.
Jane Marks.
Here.
Cynthia Martin. Monica Martinez.
Here.
David Simmons.
Here.
Tina Sloan.
Here.
Andrew Wall.
Here.
We have a quorum.
This is Cindy Martin. I'm here too. I'm sorry, my sound wasn't on.
Thank you.
And this is Catherine Brown. I didn't have my sound on. Apologies.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna say good morning one more time, and I'd love you all to unmute and say good morning so I can hear you. Good morning.
Good
morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
Good.
morning.
Good to see you. All right. I'd like to remind members of the public who join the meeting through the webcast or the toll-free number that you may request to make public comment by sending an email to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253. Please make sure the request includes your full name, your phone number if participating through the phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name used to join the meeting. At appropriate time, the meeting host will change the individual's permissions and ask that they turn on their camera and unmute their microphone to share their comment. At the conclusion of the speaker's comments, the meeting host will remove the individual's permission and their camera and microphone will be disabled. All right. Now I will just go ahead and recess the general session and move to Educator Preparation Committee again. To Commissioner Martinez, are you ready to convene the committee?
I am ready, and thank you for waking us up with the response to your good morning to make sure we're still alive and well and breathing. So good morning to everybody, and I would like to reconvene the Educator Preparation Committee. We have 3 remaining items this week. Chair Sloan just gave you the phone number and the email to contact if there are any public comments. Item 2E is the initial institutional approval, stage 3, consideration of provisional approval for Newhall School District. This item is being presented by Poonam Beatty. This is an action item. Ms. Beatty, will you please begin?
Absolutely, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Item 2E presents the Newhall School District's responses to stage 3 of the initial institutional approval process for the Commission's consideration and possible provisional approval. On page 2 of the item, you will find the 5 stages of the IIA process chart with the current stage, stage 3, highlighted. As the chart notes, provisional approval means an institution is approved, but the institution cannot offer the proposed program until stage 4, in which the relevant program standards are reviewed to determine alignment.
Addison, no.
The proposed program is then brought before the Committee on Accreditation, who may approve or deny the program. Representing the Newhall School District, we have with us today Marguerite Armstrong, who is the induction coordinator, Amy Gaudette, principal, who is the former coordinator, and Amanda Montemayor, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. They will be available to answer any programmatic questions you may have. As noted in the introduction section on page 1 of the item, the Newhall School District is proposing to offer a teacher induction program. On pages 4 through 7 of the item, the Newhall School District's responses to the 2 initial program preconditions and the teacher induction preconditions have been summarized. Review of the precondition submission was completed by commission staff, and these preconditions have been found to be all met. Moving on to pages 8 through 13 of the item, there are excerpts from the Newhall School District's responses to the Common Standards. Review of the Common Standards submission was completed by a team of BIR members. They collaborated and they came to a consensus of aligned on all the Common Standards. The link to the Newhall School District's responses, full responses, to the preconditions and Common Standards is provided on page 3 of the item. In conclusion, based on the findings of met for all relevant preconditions and aligned for all the Common Standards, staff would like to recommend provisional approval for the Newhall School District. It is our recommendation that the provisional approval period be 3 years so that in a 3rd year, a site visit can occur and data can be collected. After the site visit, a report will be completed and brought before the Commission for consideration of full approval as part of the 5th and final stage of the IIA process. Staff is happy to answer any process questions. And again, we have Marguerite, Amy, and Amanda from the Newhall School District available to answer any questions about the Stage 3 submission or the proposed induction program. Thank you.
We'll now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
We have no public comments for this item.
Okay. Then the public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And actually, I'm just going to lead off with a quick question if folks don't mind. So for the Newhall School District, I went to your website and really appreciate the vision statement around teacher induction and educational equity as well as supporting beginning teachers, but using student-centered teaching practices. And I went to your website because I really don't know that much about your district. So I wonder if you could just share a little bit about your district and the demographics and perhaps the uniqueness and need for your induction program. So just full transparency on my ignorance and my apologies.
Is Amanda, our assistant superintendent, wanting to take that question?
Sure, I would be happy to. Good morning. And I also have to say, I love that you all came on and said good morning. That's the problem with Zoom sometimes is we lose that connection. So thank you for your time. We are located in the Santa Clarita Valley, which is in North LA County. We are, if you are familiar with Magic Mountain, we always tell people we're right by Magic Mountain. That's the easiest way to describe it. We have 10 schools in our district. We are elementary only, so we offer preschool all the way through 6th grade. 5 of our schools are Title I schools and 5 of them are not. And we have about 6,000 students right now. And we are just really excited and honored to hopefully be taking on this program. So we appreciate your support.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for the visual of Magic Mountain as well.
I'd like to add, if that's okay. We currently do have an induction program in our valley in which our teachers participate. So it is currently housed in Saugus Unified School District. And so the need we recognize is there as we have participants every year added to that program, even when it feels like we have decreased hiring for teachers and things like that. We consistently have the need within that program, and we'd like to continue that program.
Thank you, Amy, for that addition. Commissioners, I'm looking at the panelist list to see if anyone has questions, or just raise your hand on video and I will call you out there. Okay, we have one question. It is from Chair Sloan.
Hello and good morning. My question is more to satisfy my own curiosity. I've been studying sort of districts of late to understand the ways in which they support their new teachers and existing teachers coming in. I've become really impressed with districts that have very clear ongoing criteria behind their professional development, and they have very strong professional development and very strong, it seems that everybody has a strong understanding of what they're about and what they're doing. And I just wondered if you could sort of convey what your professional development is like for your teachers and how your induction program becomes a part of that.
So as you probably read in our application, our work is grounded in an instructional framework, a 5D plus rubric framework that we have been trained.
Oh, we just lost your sound for a second there.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Oh, wait, there, now you're back.
Okay. So our work within the Newhall School District, which will be the LEA for our consortium, is grounded in an instructional framework that we've been trained with the Center for Educational Leadership. We've been doing that work for the last 4 years, and we work collaboratively as a district. We promote our administrators to be instructional leaders. We're continuously looking at data to assess the academic growth of our students based on the assessment collection that we do. We're constantly collaborating as professionals, taking a look at every area of our classrooms, from our English language learners to our special needs students, and the full inclusion approach that we are passionate about to make sure that we are continuously growing as professionals. I think what we've received as far as data that we've collected from our participants and also from our teachers is that opportunity to collaborate and take a look at that data and talk about our best practices and share resources with each other so that we're continually committed to that growth mindset of our profession. And with that comes continuous professional development from each of the consortiums. In Newhall, I can speak more clearly. We do have ELA and math and science coaches that are always offering PD consistently. It's been virtually. They have a website that they offer where they're continuously offering resources to our teachers. It's been a passionate effort to support each other during these trying times.
Thank you. Oh,
I just wanted to add, we also have a framework whereby new teachers have a certain amount of time, typically 2 years within their hiring date, to complete specific trainings in the vein of CLAD, looking at writing training. So we have themes throughout our district where we have resources from admin down to teachers and structures so that those trainings happen as part of being hired and being part of our district. We also, the administrators work with their instructional leadership teams to provide professional development through staff meetings. And those happen at this point, they're happening weekly because the information is changing so quickly. But we focus our work again on that CEL framework and unpacking those standards, because the framework really is around teaching practice and how to elevate teaching practice to meet the needs of all learners, which is right in line with our induction vision.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I saw that Commissioner Brown had her hand up. Go for it. We can't hear you, Catherine.
I know it was the wrong button that I pressed. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in your description of your elementary school district as preschool through grade 6, and wondered if you could just talk a little bit about how preschool is part of your elementary school system. What you do and how you integrate the preschool teaching staff into professional development and into the programs in general.
Okay, so we have 2 separate preschool components. We have our special ed preschool, And then we also have fee-based preschool. Actually, we have three. We have fee-based preschools, and then we also have preschools that are state-run through the state.
Okay.
So it really kind of depends on which of those three we're looking at. Our special ed preschool, they are part of, those teachers are part of our union. They're on the same contract. They are fully credentialed, and they participate in everything that every other teacher in our entire district does. So PD, we also, our student support services oversees our preschool program. We also have someone who's a coordinator of our preschool program as well. So every opportunity we have to pull in our preschool, we really, really make every effort to do that because we realize how imperative it is. Then like I said, we have our fee-based, and then we have our state-run as well.
And so do all of your preschools, are they all located on your elementary school campuses?
They are for sure.
And do they, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's really very meaningful, especially and intentional, especially our preschool that is for our special ed students because of inclusion. And we really want to build in as many opportunities as possible for experiences with typical peers. And like I said, and inclusion opportunities.
And just one more question. And are all of your preschools on the same schedule as the elementary schools?
No, they're all a little different. We have full-time programs, we have part-time programs. Our preschool for special ed, they kind of mirror more of like our TK. So it really depends on which site and which program.
Great. Thank you very much. It's good to hear how early education can be fully integrated into elementary school.
Absolutely. We're big believers in that.
Great question, Commissioner Brown. Thank you for always reminding us about our early childhood work. Okay, don't see any other questions or comments by commissioners. Just gonna kind of give the nice pause for a second. Okay, this is an action item. So do I have a motion to either grant provisional approval to Newhall School District and set the provisional approval period to be 3 years, or deny provisional approval? Okay, Commissioner Jackson.
So moved.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second? Okay, Commissioner Hind. Further discussion by anybody? All right, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Kirsten Barnes,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
Perry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Cladd,
Aye.
Kevin Kung,
Aye.
Jen Marks,
Aye.
Cynthia Martin,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. Well, congratulations, Newhall District, and thank you for joining us today and for your application.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support.
Great, and thank you, Miss Betty.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item 2F. 2F is institutional approval, stage 3, consideration for provisional approval for Lake County Office of Education. This item is being presented by Hart Boyd. This is an action item. Mr. Boyd, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you. This item presents Lake County Office of Education's responses to all relevant preconditions and the common standards for the Commission's consideration and possible provisional approval as we are in stage 3 of the IIA process. Joining us today from Lake County Office of Education, we have Jamie Buckner Bridges, Coordinator of Teacher Development, Cynthia Lenners, Deputy Superintendent, Brock Falkenberg, County Superintendent of Schools, Denise Shannon, Director of Internal Fiscal Services, and Starla Weirman, Consultant. They will be here to answer any institutional or program questions you may have. Lake County has submitted responses to the required program preconditions, including the 2 initial program preconditions and the program-specific preconditions. The review of the preconditions submitted by Lake County was completed by staff and all have been found to be met. A summary of these responses can be found on pages 4 to 17, and a link to the institution's full preconditions responses can be found on page 3. Lake County has also submitted responses to the common standards, and this submission was reviewed by a team of 2 Board of Institutional Review members. The team collaborated and came to a consensus on the final finding of aligned on all common standards. A summary of Lake County's common standards submission is provided and begins on page 18. Also, a link to their full common standards response can be found on page 3. Based on the findings of met for all preconditions and aligned for all common standards, staff would like to recommend provisional approval for Lake County Office of Education. It is recommended that the provisional approval be for a period of 3 years so that in the 3rd year, a site visit could occur and data could be collected. After the site visit, a report would be completed and brought before the Commission for consideration of full approval. With that, staff is available for any process questions. And again, we have representatives from Lake County Office of Education to answer any institutional or programmatic questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Boyd. And thank you, Lake County, for joining us today. We will now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
We do not have any public comments.
Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And again, I'll look at you guys on screen and or the virtual hand. Chair Sloan, thank you.
Good morning. I have been reading over your preconditions a bit and the demonstration of need that you provided. And I wondered if you could just speak to that a little bit more in detail to help us understand the context where you are and what universities are nearby that offer programs, you know, and maybe just a little bit more speak to the need.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Buckner-Bridges, Coordinator for Teacher Development, and thank you for the question, Commissioner Sloan. To provide a little bit more background about why it is that we have a demonstration of need in our community for this program, and first and foremost is we're an incredibly rural community. We are wedged in between a mountain range and a lake. Our nearest larger populations would be Santa Rosa in Sonoma County and Sacramento in Sacramento County. And both of those locations do offer four-year universities with teacher credentialing programs, but they are plus or minus at least a 2-hour drive from our community. So especially in an intern type of setting, if an intern teacher is working all day, driving 2 hours to class, attending a 3-hour class, and then driving all the way home, we've really found that it's not a sustainable model. And folks that have attempted to do it and then really just succumb to burnout and then enrolled in online programs which lack our local context. So given the rural nature of our community, given the access to programs, and that we do have a deep desire to be able to provide a local perspective in our curriculum so that we're providing trauma-informed practice, poverty-informed practice, and really developing those close connections with our school districts. We have a deep need to provide a local program for those reasons.
Great. Thank you,
Could
Chair.
I just follow up a couple questions?
Yes.
So one of the things you noted was that you wanted to offer these 2 intern programs as a better option than the number of short-term staff permits that you have had to use. Could you give us a sense of the numbers that you've had to administer of emergency short-term permits over the last couple of years?
Yes, so last school year, in the 1920 school year, we had about 60 permit teachers, PIP and STIP teachers in our county. And given we are such a small county of about 600 educators, some of those including administrators, we're looking at probably around or more than 10% of our entire teaching population is on a PIP or STIP permit. So it's of a really high priority to our school districts and our county superintendent that we provide a pathway for those permit teachers to earn their credentials.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners? I was just wondering, Lake County, how you're faring with all the fires that are surrounding you and how your schools and your staff are doing.
Thank you for asking that question, Commissioner Martinez. That's definitely something, I hate to even say it, but it's something that we've become used to. And every summer, our communities, our service organizations, our families, and our students, we're sort of poised for fire season. We've had really catastrophic fires for at least 5 years in a row. Thankfully, this year, we haven't lost significant acreage or homes within our communities. But as you mentioned, we've been fully surrounded by it. So all of the smoke, the planes flying overhead, the alerts that we get on our phones, all of those are really triggering for our students and our families because of the experiences that they've had years before. So we're doing our best. And like I said, we thankfully as a community have built a lot of infrastructural supports in response to previous years. And we're doing our best in thinking about the communities around us.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And I did wonder after I heard you talk about the trauma-informed practices. Chair Sloan has a question, and then we'll go to Commissioner Brown.
So I was then, wondering, further about, I know you all started this process a little while ago, and now that we have been in this virtual teaching environment, universities have become far more adept at offering opportunities for students who are at a distance. And I was looking at your curriculum for the summer, and I was thinking more about who are your instructors, where are they coming from, and how are you partnering with higher education or others who are experienced at teacher education?
Thank you so much. We are currently operating as a satellite of the North Coast School of Education. And so we have, this is our third cohort now, and we have those 3 years of experience in providing this teacher education curriculum to our students. Starting in 2018, so the 18-19 school year, we shifted to a hybrid model based upon our rural nature. And of course, that was significantly in advance of COVID. So we had already been accustomed to creating rigorous and engaging instruction 50% of the time online. So when the shelter in place orders happened and COVID shifted everyone's programs to online, we just had a few more steps to take in order to completely shift our program to an online platform. And then to answer your question about collaboration with other groups, we collaborate closely with the North Coast School of Education, also with the Yolo Solano Center for Teaching Credentialing in Davis. We have some partner grants with the Yuba Community College District and also the Woodland Community College District. So we work frequently with those partners to gather best practices for all of us about how to provide the most rigorous and engaging instruction during this time.
Real quick, I'm sorry. The North Coast School of Education is run by Sonoma County Office of Education. Just wanted to clear that up for all the commissioners.
Thank you, Hart. And then just one more question. One of my biggest concerns with intern programs are the kinds of experience and supports that teachers need to be able to meet the needs of students, by the time that they're there as teacher of record. And I wondered if you all had considered residency programs over intern programs. I would just like to hear your thoughts on that.
At this time, we haven't considered residency programs, and that's really primarily in a response to the high number of PIP and STIP teachers that we have. Our permanent teachers are already in the classroom. They're already serving as a full-time teacher of record. And so it's just a natural segue into an intern program so that they stay in their school sites, they stay continuing to serve the population that they're learning to serve as a PIP and STIP. That was primarily the reason for choosing an intern program versus a residency program.
Right, and I can understand that, and I can see how it unfolded, and certainly given the rural nature of where you are and all of the things that you cited, I can understand that. And I would also encourage, as you're developing this work, to consider all of the ways in which partnerships are possible and additional supports are possible prior to somebody becoming teacher of record, like a residency.
Thank you.
Thank you for that conversation and those questions. Commissioner Brown, and then we'll go to our student liaison, Jones.
Thank you for your presentation. And I just wanted to circle back to your comment and Commissioner Martinez's follow-up around the poverty and trauma that you described that your local needs, which is significant. And I just wondered if you could just do a little thumbnail sketch of some of the professional development that you do for your teaching staff around those issues.
Yes, thank you. So primarily, we've been grounding ourselves in the work of Eric Jensen and Dr. Bruce Perry. Eric Jensen has a set of wonderful resources out there around engaging and teaching students that are coming from a background of poverty. And then Dr. Bruce Perry has done a lot of work on trauma-informed practice and brain-based teaching. And this is actually really relevant because I'm currently teaching a class on classroom management to our current interns. And just last session, we had an hour-long conversation about how to help a child regulate before you can ask them to access that the deeper, more critical thinking parts of their brain. And I was using the strategies that have been presented by Dr. Bruce Perry in his work. So we're presenting it in our PIP-STIP trainings, also in our ongoing teacher development for our certified teachers, and throughout our intern programs. We also, from the county office, have provided guest speakers from other areas to come and share that trauma-informed practice information with all of our county's educators. And then just last year, our Educational Services Department took it as a priority to send our entire Ed Services staff to a training in San Francisco. Oh, I'm trying to remember the exact title. It was around brain-based learning. And we spent a full 2 days in San Francisco learning from the nation's top researchers on how to help kids learn through the biology of trauma.
Yeah. Dr. Nadine Harris's work is informative about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown, for that follow-up. Student liaison Jones, and then we'll go to Commissioner Hind.
Yeah, so Commissioner Brown, I had the same kind of question. However, I know that it was a little tweaked for, I know that you spoke a little bit on trauma-informed teaching, which I believe is needed. It's needed all over. And as we know, that trauma, it comes in many different ways, and sometimes it's related back to cultural background, socioeconomic class. And I was a little curious to see if there's anything regarding diversity, inclusion, equity, racial sensitivity within those trainings that you are referring to.
Yes, absolutely. So specifically, if we look through the lens of poverty and that there is a statistical correlation between trauma and poverty, and then unfortunately, there's also a statistical correlation between poverty and communities of a minority population. And so if we lead our teachers through that understanding through the data and then have them ground themselves in what our population is here in Lake County. And we are also heavily prioritizing connection with our tribal communities so that we can be adding that diverse perspective to our curriculum and to our teaching staff.
Any follow-up?
Wait, actually, yeah. For your teachers, is there anything for your teachers that you're doing to support them with like diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So we are supporting them through ongoing trainings and conversations, absolutely, as with the other trainings that I've mentioned previously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Commissioner Hind.
I just wanted to comment. I'm so happy to hear you talk about Dr. Bruce Perry. He's like a celebrity in my house. Commissioner Granito-Shire and I had the opportunity to hear him speak at a West Ed board meeting, and he is just phenomenal. And I wish that more school districts were able to give those types of trainings to their teachers, because the hour that I heard him speak changed my life as an educator forever, and as a parent too. So I just think that's amazing. I think what you're doing in your area is incredible and so valuable, and those teachers are really lucky to have those opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I had the same response to Dr. Perry.
We all have our heroes. Yeah, Commissioner Granite-Shire.
Good morning, all. Thank you for your presentation. As you were talking about the focus on trauma-informed practice, I'm curious to, and maybe it's in your documents and I didn't see it, I'm curious as to the demographic match between the students and the teacher workforce. And I'm thinking about that from the perspective of how important Grow Your Own programs are to attract and support community members who reflect the diversity of their community to be teaching in classrooms. So I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about your teaching force.
Yes, thank you so much. Our teaching force, particularly, I love that phrase that you use, the grow your own. And that's a huge priority of our program, is that we're able to provide these pathways to our local folks who are raising families here, who have roots here, who are maybe, or most likely all of them were raised here themselves, because they understand that local context. We have current teachers in our intern program that, for example, were raised as part of the Lake County foster system. And so they have that background of overcoming challenges, which is very much of what our students face as well. We also have students in our program that are from our Native community. We have students in our program that are English learners, that English is their second language. And so not only do we find that it helps students see themselves reflected in their classroom's leaders, but also those perspectives from those folks come out in class discussions, and it ends up positively impacting the entire cohort of teachers because those perspectives are being voiced throughout the coursework.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions, Commissioner Granito-Shire? Okay. I do not see any more questions. All right. So this is an action item. Do I have a motion to either grant provisional approval to Lake County Office of Education and set the provisional approval period to be 3 years, or deny provisional approval?
I move to grant.
Okay. Commissioner Barnes, or I think it was you who said move to grant, right?
It was me.
Oh, Alicia. Okay, Commissioner Hind moves that we grant, and Commissioner Barnes is a second. All right, so I think we're ready to take a vote.
Kirsten Barnes,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Marisol de la Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Alicia Hine,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Kevin Kung,
Aye.
Jen Marks,
Aye.
Cynthia Martin,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Lake County, and best of luck as we continue to go through fire season, and may you and your staff and your families and your kids and everybody else be safe, including all the animals.
Yes, thank you so much for your support.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. In spirit, we have the rest of the commission team, but I think Mr. Boyd lost his internet connection. So we are going to move on to item 2G. Institutional approval, stage 3, consideration of approval for the University of Antelope Valley. This item is being presented by Poonam Bedi. This is an action item. Ms. Bedi, will you please begin?
Absolutely. Good morning again, commissioners.
Good morning again.
Thank you. Agenda item 2G presents the University of Antelope Valley's, UAV's, responses to stage 3 of the initial institutional approval process for the Commission's consideration and possible provisional approval. On page 2 of the item, there's that lovely chart on the 5 stages of the IIA process, with the current stage, stage 3, highlighted. And as the chart notes, provisional approval means that an institution is approved, but the institution cannot offer the proposed program until stage 4, in which the relevant program standards are reviewed to determine alignment. It's at that point that the proposed program is brought before the Committee on Accreditation, who may approve or deny the program. Representing the University of Antelope Valley, we have with us today Crystal Stevens, who is the Director of Institutional Effectiveness and Operations, Shonay Harris, who's the Dean of Academic Affairs, and I believe Barry Ryan, Vice President. Okay, saw that nod. Perfect. They will be available to answer any programmatic questions you may have. And as stated in the introduction on page 1 of this item, UAV is proposing a preliminary single subject math credential program and a preliminary single subject science credential program. On pages 4 through 8 of the item, UAV's responses to the 2 initial program preconditions, general precondition 9, and the preliminary multiple subject single subject preconditions have been summarized. Review of the preconditions was completed by commission staff. These preconditions have all been found to be met. Moving on to pages 9 through 16 of the item. On these pages, there are excerpts from UAV's responses to the common standards. A team of BIR members reviewed, collaborated, and came to a consensus of aligned on all the common standards. The link to UAV's full responses to both the preconditions and the common standards is provided on page 3 of the item. In conclusion, based on the findings of met for all relevant preconditions and aligned for all the common standards, staff would like to recommend provisional approval for the University of Antelope Valley. It is recommended that the provisional approval be for a period of 2 years. So in a second year, a site visit can occur and data can be collected. After the site visit, a report will be completed and brought before the commission for consideration of full approval, which is part of that 5th and final stage of the IIA process. Just very briefly here, I would like to take a moment to clarify a typo that's in the last paragraph of the staff recommendation. It says that 3 years worth of data, and it should read 2. So just want to be very clear that the recommendation for provisional approval is for a period of 2 years. With that, staff is happy to answer any process questions. And again, we have Crystal, Shonay, and Barry from the University of Antelope Valley, available to answer any questions about the Stage 3 submission or the proposed program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty. We will now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
We received one request from Dr. David Vieira, but I do not believe he is online with us.
Yes, he is.
He is there?
He's present.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Sure, my name is David Vieira. I'm the superintendent of the Antelope Valley Union High School District. So good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share some brief comments in support of this action item before you today.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry?
I can hear him. Can everyone, commissioners, can you just put a thumbs up if you can hear the superintendent? We're okay, Haiju, we can hear him. Can you? Haiju, can you hear us?
Can you hear us? But we can't hear his voice.
Perhaps superintendent, get closer to the microphone if there's one. The rest of the commissioners can hear, but our commission staff are having some challenges.
I'll try to speak a little bit louder too. Does that help?
That is helpful.
That works. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and I'll speak louder on that. So again, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share some brief comments in support of this action item before you today. Again, I'm David Vieira. I'm superintendent with the Antelope Valley Union High School District. We're a high school district of approximately 22,000 students. I know earlier in your meeting today, there was Saugus that presented. Geographically, we're just a little bit due east of them, about 20 minutes. So we're in the most northern portion of Los Angeles County. And not unlike any of the districts, within the county or within the state or really within the country, we're experiencing a teacher shortage as well. For us, it's to the tune of about 50 to 60 every year of teachers that we run short. We bring many on through the provisional, the temporary teacher permit, and in some cases, unfortunately, we have long-term subs, specifically in our core areas, that being math, science, and special education. And we're at a point where it's imperative that we put forth any additional efforts that we can to ensure that we're going to be filling our teacher workforce here, as a lot of challenges for many districts out there, especially in light of where we are in the pandemic and our aging workforce and in our current recent retirements, and we're projecting more to be forthcoming. How do we best move forward with filling those vacancies as they exist? Over the last couple of years, we've had aggressive recruiting efforts. We've gone to the Pacific Northwest, we've gone to the South, and we continue to do those things, but it still remains that challenge. And so in an effort to address that, specifically our teacher shortage, we partnered with the University of Antelope Valley about 2 years ago, and we currently do have an MOU in place as of April 20th this year. I would share that we do have teachers within our district that would welcome candidates to come into the classroom and work with our diverse student population. We have designated 2 specific individuals in our district, that being our assistant superintendent of personnel and a director of personnel, that work directly with UAV with regards to the curriculum as this program is being put together, with the staffing, with the recruitment of candidates, and promoting the program at job fairs as well. So, in closing, we all know that there's a high need for teachers. We believe our continued partnership with the UAV is crucial in addressing this need, and we believe it will help support our students in our community. So I thank you for the opportunity to comment this morning and would sincerely appreciate your support on this item. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Recording Secretary, are there any other public comments?
No, we have no further comments.
Great, thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. We will now move to commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I will use my chairmanship to ask a question. I think this is probably going to go to the commission staff, but I wonder if you can help me understand a little bit more about the procedure and how this is a 2-year provisional approval instead of a 3-year provisional approval. And I also want to thank Antelope Valley for addressing 2 really high need subject areas, math and science.
Okay, thank you for your question, Commissioner Martinez. So the provisional approval period is determined based on the length of the proposed program. So UAV's proposed program length is anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending on the time in which a candidate enrolls. So based on that, we put the provisional approval period to be 2 years.
Is 12 to 18 shorter? Is that, or less common, I guess I will ask? Oh, okay, Terry, yes, can you help me?
Chair Martinez, a lot of the ones you've just seen are doing induction programs or intern programs, which tend to be a full 2-year program. So the provisional approval is set for 3 years so that there are completers. The rule is we need to have them be completers for this focused site visit. So there should be completers in 2 years for University of Antelope Valley. That's why it's a 2-year suggestion.
Thank you so much. I learn as we go, so I appreciate the commission staff for helping me understand that. Chair Sloan, you have a question or comment?
Thank you. One of my questions, we're seeing so much more the effects of our teacher shortage, and you all focusing on STEM. We've long time had a difficulty with recruiting people from the STEM field into teaching, and I wonder what strategies you're thinking of to recruit people to come and join you in this new program.
Absolutely. Once again, I want to thank you guys for having us. My name is Shanae Harris. So this is Crystal, just so you can know which ones you're speaking with. But absolutely, we work with, as Dr. Vieira said, we'll be working with the high school district. And we also do our own recruitment strategies, going to job fairs, college fairs, our marketing strategies and things like that. We know that those two are difficult to fill. And, we're thinking to hopefully fill those shoes as best of our ability, using the current marketing strategies and foreseeable marketing strategies, and along with our district partnerships.
I know, the other concern we have, and the questions have been raised here as well, that we diversify our teaching force too. And the other concern we have is the cost of becoming a teacher. And I wonder if you could speak to both of those with respect to recruitment strategy.
You said the cost of, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, the cost of?
Yeah, both diversifying our workforce and strategies for doing that, and ensuring that the teachers that you bring into Antelope Valley are meeting the needs of your students in that regard. And then the second being a concern is the cost to become a teacher. Often is a barrier to people coming into the field. So I wondered, with respect to recruitment, that you could respond to both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently our student population, we have a quite diverse student population. We have about 40% Hispanic population and 61% female population of just our current student population right now. It is also reflected in our faculty population as well. So our recruitment strategies, because we live in such a diverse area, and we go beyond just our local area, we are able to hopefully, continue the recruitment of a diverse population of students, which we currently find. In addition to that, as far as cost, we all know that higher education is very costly. We look at the surrounding institutions around us that we know will have the same type of program, a single subject program, Azusa Pacific being one of them. Their current tuition cost is $851 a unit, which our current tuition cost is $531 a unit. So we understand that it is pricey, higher education is pricey, but we try to stay relatively, competitive with our general area.
And we are, of course, have federal financial aid available to our students. We participate in Cal Grants. We do wide marketing campaigns to encourage all of our students to participate in Cal Grants, campus-wide. We try to make every effort in making individuals aware of grants, scholarships that are available to assist with their tuition costs.
Great. Well, I wish you all the best in these efforts, and thank you for your responses.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sloan. We have a question by our student liaison, Corey Jones.
Thank you so much for having me ask you all a question. Basically, when it comes to having students come into programs, especially with teaching, we need a lot of support. And I know that Commissioner Sloan, you talked about that support too, that's needed. How exactly are you going to recruit? What are you going to do when we get there? Especially in terms of STEM and math, there's testing that's going to take place that they have to do to get their credential. There's courses that they need to get through, STEM courses and math courses. A lot of times, especially with single subject, they have to take those upper division courses. And if we're looking to have those diverse populations and we're trying to really bring people from a lot of different areas, I'm really interested in the supports you're going to give your students when they get there in terms of academic support and also credential support.
Absolutely. So as far as academic support, currently it's a requirement for all of our faculty to put in several hours a week of just individual tutoring for their student population. In addition to that, we have peer tutoring and we have online tutoring services through an outside 24 agency that provides 24/7 tutoring. We also have mentorships. We also look to make sure that we are partnering, like we said, with the school districts, the local school districts, to set up those observations and different things to help support the student candidate.
And our institution is very committed. Our faculty are, we're most proud. We have very passionate faculty on staff. We have a learning resource center as well that hears the needs of the faculty and will present trainings as needed to hearing the responses of our faculty. We hold faculty develop committee meetings that are held monthly to allow the faculty to identify professional development areas that they feel might be needed for either themselves or for the students, to where we can organize those types of training sessions, whether it be for faculty or for our student population. So our commitment is definitely providing those support services to both faculty and students.
I really appreciate how you talked about peer mentorship and tutoring, because mentorship can really take a student a long way. I wanted to kind of, I guess, re-ask, is there any supports that you all foresee when it comes to credential testing? How do you all see helping our students through that process?
Absolutely. So we definitely see that it will be a team effort with our, the director of the program, the TPE coordinator, all of those different entities will be a team effort as far as subject matter competency. So we definitely know that, once we get to that stage, that we're going to have to build those support systems into this new program. Absolutely. And we would treat it just like we would any of our other programs, where we fully 100% support those efforts.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And we will also have a budget once this program is going. We will have a budget for having a credential prep program to focus our efforts on preparing the students for the Cal TPA, the assessments, to help prepare those students for those assessments.
Thank you, Student Liaison Jones. We really appreciate your voice and thinking about other students who are preparing to be teachers. Thank you for those questions, and thank you, University of Antelope, for addressing them. Any other questions or comments by the commissioners as I scan your little romper room photos in my virtual hands? Okay. This is an action item. So do I have a motion to either grant provisional approval to the University of Antelope Valley and set the provisional period to be 2 years? I think I got that right. That was the typo we were talking about. Or deny provisional approval. So motion for 2 years, Chair Sloan, and a second by, first by Chair Sloan and a second by Chair Barnes. Further discussion? Okay, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member respond with a aye, nay, or abstain.
Kirsten Barnes.
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney.
Aye.
Marisol de la Torre Escobedo.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Alicia Hine.
Aye.
Perry Jackson.
Aye.
Bonnie Clatt.
Aye.
Kevin Kung.
Aye.
Jim Marks.
Aye.
Cynthia Martin. Cynthia Martin.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Congratulations to the University of Antelope Valley. Good luck with your work over the next 2 years. We look forward to reviewing the data and seeing you guys here another time. Thank you, Ms. Betty, for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Having no additional items, I adjourn the Educator Preparation Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I know we're going to see you again in just a bit. Next is the Professional Practices Committee. Commissioner Cooney, will you please convene the committee?
Anybody else getting that interference?
Yeah.
I am.
I wonder if it, Gilberto, when you came on, we were hearing this strange sound. We can't hear you either. Here, there's a very strange buzzing sound.
Gil, do you want to try logging off and logging on again?
Well, there.
Okay, we'll wait just a minute for Gil to come back.
Sounds like the fire alarm was going off.
Yeah.
See upstairs.
Isn't that funny? You see the names. I've never thought of Gil as Gilberto, but that makes sense. There, the sound is gone. Can you hear us?
We cannot hear you.
We still cannot hear you. Darn. One option is to try your phone as the audio.
Gil, is your computer muted? Do you have the volume on your computer muted?
So Gil, there is a call-in number if you want to use your phone to call in. Will that work, Rhonda Haju?
That would work.
Would
We
work.
also can maybe go to a different committee and come back to professional practices.
Madam Chair, would
That
you
be
like
fine
to
with, Chair Sloan?
move to the Budget Committee while we work out the technical difficulties, and then is the Budget Committee next? I believe it
That
is,
would be
yes.
fine. It's a good thing Commissioner Martinez didn't move seats.
Oh, you guys missed me, you know.
Right. Well, instead of professional practices, next we will move to the Fiscal Policy and Planning Committee. Commissioner Martinez, will you please convene the committee?
I will gladly convene the October 2020 meeting of the Fiscal Policy and Planning Committee. The committee has only one item before it today. I'd like to remind members of the public that wish to speak on this item to please email your request to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253. Please make sure the request includes your full name, phone number, if participating through phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name used to join the meeting. At the appropriate time, the meeting host will change the individual's permissions and ask they turn on their camera and unmute their microphone to share their comment. At the conclusion of the speaker's comments, the meeting host will remove the individual's permission and their camera and microphone will be disabled. Item 4A is Commission on Teacher Credentialing Budget. It is an information item. Michelle Peralt and Vivian Sue will present this item. Ms. Peralt, will you please begin?
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
I can.
And I don't have feedback. We're good. All right.
No
Excellent.
echoes. Yeah. No fire alarm.
Okay, well, we're good to go then. Good morning. I'm here today with my colleague Vivian Sue to provide an update on the Commission's 2020-21 projected budget, and we're going to include details related to both our revenue and our expenditures. I'm just going to give a brief overview about the process, a little bit about a background about both our revenue and expenditures, and then I will turn it back over to my colleague Vivian to provide you some details as it relates to projections for the the current fiscal year, because we are in October. So just a reminder, the budget itself, the way it's developed, you hear us come to the table fairly regularly to provide you an update as the budget is being crafted at the legislative and administrative level. The development includes an introduction that starts in January, an adoption, and then an implementation of the agency's budget takes place after that. The process, as you've probably heard me say before, involves us working with the Department of Finance. We start that work actually with them in the fall prior to the budget year. So a year ago, we started working with the Department of Finance and the administration regarding certain budgetary needs or requests that the agency might need for the upcoming year. We then engaged with the legislature after seeing the governor's introduced budget in January and then work through with the legislature, the administration, and finally an enacted budget is provided, as you know, at the end of June. So this year, the budget obviously started out a little bit different than we had anticipated. In January, the budget we saw included quite a few enhancements to the agency's budget in the form of grants. We were looking at a state budget that was very different than the state budget we ended up with in June. This, as we know, was due in great part to COVID-19. And as a result, there was definitely some changes in the ultimate budget that was adopted. Just as a reminder, the Commission is a specially funded agency. Our agency's budget in revenue is paid through the fees that come through credentials and exams mostly. Almost 100% of our revenue comes from that. We do receive on a semi-regular basis, we may receive some general fund support, but usually that comes to us in the form of grants. As I mentioned, the credential volumes, our accreditation visits and fees, and our exam fees are what help us determine year over year whether our revenues will go up and go down. They have generally stayed very steady over the past, 6 to 7 years. And then this year, obviously, we've seen some changes as a result of the environment and the circumstances. As I mentioned, the agency does sometimes get grants. Sometimes those are in the form of general fund dollars. Sometimes those are Prop 98 funding. This year, we didn't ultimately end up with any additional grant funding. However, I did want to make a mention, because we have had grant funding in previous years, that the funding for those existing grants have still remained with us, and we are continuing to provide that grant funding for various multi-year grant programs, which include the residency and the classified grant programs. So with that overview, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Vivian Sue. She will go ahead and provide you a little bit more detail as it relates to our current expenditure authority for the agency, as well as the revenue expenditure projections for this year. Vivian?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning, Vivian.
Okay. Good morning. So we're kind of going to get into the weeds of the numbers. This is the enacted budget as of July 1, so this was approved by the legislature and signed by the governor. So overall, we were appropriated $30.125 million. Of that, we got $20.45 million for personal services. I would like to note that this does not yet reflect the recent agreements made with the state and the bargaining units for various reductions like the personal leave program. So there will be a mid-year adjustment to reflect these changes, so we will see a budget reduction as a result of this.
Ms. Sue, if you are referring to any specific pages, can you give us page numbers?
So this will be on page, this is on page 3 or page 2 of the agenda item. Under commission expenditures, it'll show an overview of where the figures are. Next, we were appropriated $9.675 million for operating expenses, $5.5 million of which is for Attorney General costs, as well as ongoing support for the Accreditation Streamline project, and $710,000 to continue special ed TPA development. The remaining amount is for commission expenditures for things like paying leases, ongoing equipment expenses, travel expenses, and things of that nature. So next we'll move into the overview of our revenue and resources. You'll find that at the bottom of page 2. So at the beginning of the year, beginning of last year, we had projected that for 1920 we would bring in about $33.4 million. In actuality, it came in a little lower at $30.8 million, which is an 8% difference in what we had originally projected. This is largely due to COVID-19. There was a decline due to closures of exam centers and credential not operating at full capacity, as well as school districts may be restricting hiring at this time. So we do anticipate seeing a decline in current year revenue as well. In addition to that, we anticipate a suspension of accreditation fees. This was proposed in the governor's budget and enacted in the final budget. In addition to a decline in revenue, we also had a $14 million loan to the general fund. And this is set to be repaid with interest. And although there are these changes with our revenue, we do not anticipate a deficit spending in our current or our out years.
Thank you. So as Vivian has mentioned, obviously I've come to you in the past several years. As you can see, our budget has changed fairly rapidly this year. None of this is surprising to us given the current environment fiscally at the state level. Just a couple of things I want to point out as we look to some of our future cost trends. As you can imagine, we here at the Commission staff is monitoring very closely the revenue that's coming in this year, as well as our expenditures out. And so we are going to continue to be very prudent and fiscally conservative as we move through this year in order to, well, I should say, we just want to make sure we're continuing to monitor it because things Seeing a delay in our revenue, which again is anticipated because school districts, are doing later hiring. Programs had to finish in a much different way, and so credential applications are coming in slightly delayed. That being said, we are seeing an uptick in our credential applications, so those are all good things. As I mentioned, or I should say, as Vivian mentioned, we do not anticipate doing some deficit spending this year. We have projected out numbers for the next several years as well, and we are also hopeful that we will not have to deficit spend. As Vivian did mention, the state borrowed against our reserves. We had a very healthy reserve prior to this fiscal year. They have borrowed that $14 million, though they anticipate starting to pay that back in 3 years' time with interest. So we've been here before with the state. So as I mentioned, we'll continue as staff to monitor. Some of the things specifically we're looking at doing for this year, and some of it's happening on the natural, is reducing our travel costs as we've moved into more virtual meetings, both for our accreditation visits and some of our work groups. That has happened on the natural, so that is helping us with some savings. We're also looking at evaluating some of our discretionary expenditures, such as non-mandatory staff trainings, for example, minimizing equipment purchases, looking at whether those are things we can hold off, and then just some of our other general expenditures. We will, again, continue to watch outgoing years for any dips in our revenue that might impact what expenditure authority we're provided for outgoing years. But I think in conclusion, really, though we weren't where we thought we'd be in January when this budget process started, because the commission has done such a great job of being good stewards of the dollars and have been, have approached with that in mind, we do not anticipate having to do any deficit spending, and hopefully will not need to do deficit spending for the outgoing 2 years as well. So I'm happy to take any questions or to clarify any of the numbers. I know we threw a lot of numbers at you at once.
Quite okay. Thank you, Ms. Peral and Ms. Sue. Thank you very much. We'll now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
No, there are not.
Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And I'm happy to kind of lead with a question for Ms. Peralta or Ms. Sue. I appreciate the fiscal responsibility and what amazing stewards you guys have been. And we always have a very strong and consistent budget when it comes to revenue and spending. And I'm wondering if this is the first year we haven't met our revenue projections, because it's always very healthy. And I remember, the state loan and all of that. So is this one of the first years that we've not met our revenue projections?
So this is the first year we haven't met revenue projections for a while. If you will recall, prior to 15-16, when the fee was increased, we did see some years where our projections came in lower. But yes, that is true. I will say, again, given the circumstances, it's not surprising that we really were on target to not only meet revenue projections, but exceed them slightly up until the last quarter of 1920, where, as you know, everything essentially shut down for all intents and purposes. We are hopeful that as either things open back up or as we're starting to see, as I mentioned, a delay in credential applications, but they are coming, and as programs are able to finish out candidates, and we're just seeing a slight delay in that, that hopefully we will not see an 8% dip for the 2020-21 fiscal year. But again, we'll be monitoring and updating our budget frequently throughout the fiscal year in order to really gauge that better.
Can I just add something, Madam
Executive
Chair?
Director Sandy?
Yeah, it's, I appreciate the ways in which Michelle and Vivian are able to present the story. The last quarter of last year was unprecedented, which may be the most overused word of the year, 2020. But what we're hearing from the field, in fact, I was in conversation with Marquita Grenache-Shire just this past week, is that enrollments in higher education or in teacher education are up across the system. So since our budget projections, what we think will come through the door follows pretty closely how many candidates are enrolled in preparation and ultimately complete preparation. We're cautious, and our budget people are extremely cautious, and that's good. Keeps us in the black, which is where we want to be. I'm cautiously optimistic that what we saw at the end of last year was simply related to the fact that people couldn't finish their credentials. And that they are coming in this year and next year, and they were given the space and flexibility of the executive order and other flexibilities the commission offered, which will extend some of their time to complete some things. But most of them should have earned a preliminary credential or a variable term waiver anyway. And so we've been tracking. I ask Aaron Scooble on the regular, I think weekly, how's it looking? Are we seeing people from last year who are catching up? So cautiously optimistic about the future, but conservative in all of our expenditure expectations and income expectations. That's the word of the day.
And I would just mention also, and I appreciate that, Dr. Sandy. I think the other element that Vivian mentioned was there was a suspension in the budget for our accreditation fees, but that is not the same as our actual budget having to absorb that. It's about $800,000-ish a year that we get in those fees. They did allocate for that out of our reserves. And I think that part of the reason that we found that in the budget was, to continue to incentivize programs to make sure that they are getting accredited and staying and offering programs. So I just wanted to add that little bit of a clarification point, because I know that has come up before too.
Absolutely. And I'll just add and go to Commissioner Greno-Shire is, I think, given the pandemic and the simultaneous crisis, this is really amazing that you've been able to keep the impact so minimal, and appreciate you monitoring the future projections. Commissioner Greno-Shire?
Thank you. I share Executive Director Sandy's optimism about our enrollment. It is across the CSU either stable or, as Mary said, increased. So we are watching that very carefully. At the same time, we've been in conversations that this budget situation is a 3-year situation or a 3-year problem. And so I'm curious as to conversations that commission staff are having about a 3-year window and how we as commissioners can be helpful to you.
I will say that as staff, we are having those conversations, and one of obviously the first things, and we do this on the natural, but one of the things that Vivian and her staff did as we started to see numbers coming in at the last quarter of last year, and then anticipating this year, was to create an outgoing 3-year projected budget. And it's, it's our job, as Mary said, to perhaps look at that with a worst case scenario lens. And I will say that we have done that. And even in that situation, even with the borrowing against reserves, we certainly would be looking at needing to, ratchet down some things, possibly put off some, projected expenditures, particularly maybe in our IT area and those places. But we will survive. If we have to do some deficit spending, there will be some reserves that we would need to work with the Department of Finance and the administration on, but they are available even with the borrow against the reserves that the state took. So we are not, as staff, feeling in a panic. I agree with, what Dr. Sandy indicated, as did you, Marquita, that, we're hopeful because we do have flexibilities that credential fees will come in, similar to what we've seen. And if that is the case, and even if they take a slight dip, we will be in a healthy place for at least 3 years. If it goes on, 5-6 years, then we may have to have some different conversations. But again, I think both as a commission body, you have guided the staff to take some conservative approaches and provided that oversight, and that's paying off and allowing us to weather hopefully what we anticipate or would like to anticipate to be a shorter fiscal storm. So,
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Student Liaison Jones, I saw earlier. Yeah, you had your hand up, and go for it.
Okay, so I have like a set of questions, and then I guess depending on the answers, then I have a comment. So for my first question, when I see the revenue projection, the areas that there are, it seems as though like 100% of it is from students who are becoming teachers. Is that where like all of our revenue is coming from?
So our revenue actually comes from a couple of different places, but you are correct. The majority of our revenue does come from credential fees. So those are individuals who are either applying for a first-time credential, or those are individuals who are already in the classroom who are renewing, right? So a credential has to be renewed, a professional credential has to be renewed every 5 years typically. And then we have a variety of other documents, sub-documents that folks apply for if they want to be a sub. But yes, a good majority, we have two primary funds, and I should have mentioned that maybe earlier just as a historical, because I know we have some new folks. We have two primary funds that help to support the Commission's work. One is our Teacher Credentialing Fund, and that comes from those fees that are paid. A typical fee is $100, although there is some variance. And then we have a secondary fund that comes from our exam fees primarily, and then we our accreditations. So those are the three large pots of revenue.
Awesome, thank you. And I guess my next question is what I don't know how to phrase this. What state or I guess institutional support do we have consistently? Like what does the CTC have like yearly as just I guess a baseline of like this is what we're giving you? What do we have that?
So I'm going to restate your question so I make sure I understand it, and I'm probably going to have Vivian answer it. I think what you're asking is, or what I heard you ask is so we have revenue that comes in, and then the state of California year over year allocates how much of that revenue we can expend. And so I think the question you're asking is, have they on average provided us a consistent amount of what we call expenditure authority? What can we expend out of that revenue? Is that what you're asking?
I think I'm asking that, and also I guess I'm asking if there's monies, like if there's already a granted like amount of money that the CTC is given by the state every year. So the state provides us funding each year, and it does fluctuate slightly depending on what our requests are. What they provide is they look at what has been our previous year actuals, is what we call it. So how much did we spend on staff? How much did we spend on travel, accreditation, what we call our operating expenditures. So that's, everything that keeps the lights on to our least, all of that. They look at what that actual was from the previous fiscal year to make a determination and recommendation about what our expenditure should be for the current year. Sometimes we have an opportunity, we always have an opportunity, but to ask in the fall prior to those conversations if there are expenditures that we anticipate for the year upcoming that maybe weren't included in the previous year budgets. We call those budget change proposals, and we put those forward, and they will take those into consideration. And sometimes they provide us funding augmentation, so they'll give us more funding in order for us to cover those. Sometimes they don't. It all just depends, but that's why it's a very collaborative conversation as we go through the budget process during the spring with the legislature and the administration.
Great. Anything else, Student Liaison Jones?
Yeah. Also, I guess my comment about this is that seeing that a lot of the monies, the revenue is generated by students who are in educated preparation programs. I guess it reflects the feasibility sometimes of what it takes to become a teacher. And I would strongly want to just, I guess, say that it costs a lot. And it cost a lot before COVID hit too. So I know that there's a lot of things being initiated and put in place regarding the revenue, but I strongly suggest that we really do try to find other places and other revenue, other places of revenue, and also I want to ask if there is anything students can do. When you all send these initiatives or you send anything to get approval to get any funding for these programs and for the CTC, to possibly lower any expenses that our students are coming out of pocket for, what can students do to support in that cause?
Can I? So I so appreciate your question, Ms. Jones, and your presence, and in this meeting, you've really brought some good questions to bear. The Governor Brown and Governor Newsom have invested significantly in teacher recruitment and development. You heard a report yesterday on the Local Solutions Grant, which was intended to offset costs for candidates, particularly in STEM fields and in special education. The residency program that you'll hear more about next meeting, also is intended to offset the costs of preparation. The Student Aid Commission is operating forgivable loan programs that were funded by this governor and the prior governor as well. All of these are designed to really help the state recruit and retain the workforce that we need, and to eliminate the kinds of shortages that we've seen that have become chronic and have been increasing in recent years. They're also intended to focus on areas of chronic shortage, special education and STEM fields, and also intended to recruit a more diverse population into the teaching force. So it's been a real commitment of the state, the legislature, and the governor to address the very issue you're raising. In fact, we were expecting, as of the January 10 of this year budget proposal produced by the governor's office, we were looking at having a significant amount of grant funding that we were going to be putting out into the field to support and offset costs for teachers moving into the profession. But COVID hit, the economic situation has hit. I will say that these, what's happening societally right now with this pandemic is a big interruption, but we have not forgotten the issue of needing to maintain a robust workforce and to recruit and to make sure that there's access. I know this governor has not forgotten that, nor has the legislature. So as the budget and as the economy begins to stabilize, I would expect that we'll be coming back into some viable ways of securing funding to support the recruitment and offset costs for candidates. I just think that's a commitment. We've asked every year since I've been here, we have asked the legislature and the governor to consider how we can support more grants to bring people into the workforce. So it's tough at the moment, but I think it's just kind of in suspended animation for this moment, and it'll come back, is my prediction.
Great. I want to echo my thanks. Oh, go ahead, Student Liaison Jones.
I just wanted to say thank you for that answer. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the students who will be hearing these recordings, hopefully, they would appreciate that answer as well.
Great. Again, thank you, Student Liaison Jones, for the voice you bring. Any other questions or comments, Commissioner Brown?
Corey, it is so good to have you here, and you're asking all the right questions, and I echo those questions as well. I think that I really appreciate Director Sandy's response around the fact that we are a specially funded agency, so that we serve with the focus of the governor and hopefully the support of the legislature, instead of just an ongoing, hi, we're the Department of Transportation and we always get gas taxes. So I think that piece is really accurate, that the current and the previous governor really were interested in education and therefore supported the investments of things like grants. There's a part of me as a commissioner that wishes we had an ongoing general ed support, that somehow the state said, oh, and we're always going to support the education of the children of our state and the preparation of their teachers. But short of that, I think as a specially funded agency, we still have to do the best we can to articulate and then advocate so that we don't get too far down the list. COVID, that being said, both COVID and the current federal circumstances have been an unwelcome interruption, but not one that has stopped us. And Michelle and Vivian, thank you for the clarity and the advocacy, because budget is policy. We can't have things that we want to have happen and then no money, time, or resources to support them. So thanks for bringing it up and keeping us on that, because yeah, it would appear that the students and the teacher prep institutions are the major revenue for this work. So let's just keep advocating and we'll see what we can get.
Great. I don't see any other questions or comments, and I think Commissioners Brown, your comments are a nice way to summarize this agenda item. So this is an information item and no action is needed. Thank you, Ms. Prawl. Thank you, Ms. Sue, and thank you all of the CTC staff for being such good stewards of the budget, and appreciate your long vision and your short vision as well to manage this. This concludes the business before the Fiscal Policy and Planning Committee, and the committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. And that was a wonderful discussion. So thank you all for participating and presenting that item. Let's take a quick break, okay? Why don't we come back at 10:20? Yeah, see you then. And Gil, do you want to test your...
Yeah, I was going to say, Gail, can you try your phone to see?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good.
You hear me fine?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we almost have everyone back. Gil, are you just participating by phone?
By phone, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. Next, we'll do the Professional Practices Committee. Commissioner Cooney, will you please convene the committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will convene the meeting of the Professional Practices Committee. The committee has 2 information items before it today. If there are members of the public that wish to speak on either of the items, please email your request to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253. Make sure that the request includes your full name, phone number, if participating through the phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name used to join the meeting. At the appropriate time, the meeting host will change the individual's permissions and ask that they turn on their camera and unmute their microphone to share their comment. At the conclusion of the speaker's comments, the meeting host will remove the individual's permission and their camera and microphone will be disabled. Item 3 is the Division of Professional Practices Workload Report. And as everyone knows, Mr. Gonzalez is with us with having overcome the challenges of the Zoom technology. Mr. Gonzalez, will you please begin?
Good morning, Commissioners. Sorry about that. This is item 3A, the DVP workload, an informational item. The Commission's dashboard reports on 6 key measurements in line graph form, showing both current year numbers as well as prior year numbers for comparison purposes. I will highlight the August 2020 statistics. The total cases are the number of open cases within DPP, including cases in intake units, before the Committee of Credentials, pending before the Commission, and pending the administrative hearing. At the end of August, the caseload was down to 2526 and below the normal range of 26 to 2800 cases. Cases open are the new cases received during the month from all sources, including criminal arrest notices, district reports, affidavits, and educators who self-report misconduct. In August, staff opened 349 cases, which is the 6th month in a row that DPP has opened cases below the normal range of 400 to 500 cases. As can be seen in the initial and formal review charts, the committee continues to effectively handle a large number of cases under consideration. The numbers in these 2 charts reflect the number of cases reviewed by the committee at its normal 3-day meeting in August and a second 2-day meeting to review additional formal review cases that were delayed and placed on a wait list due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. The 2-step process, initial review and formal review, is required by statute. As I previously stated, the COC did not review appearance cases during the March through June meetings due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, and we placed those individuals on a wait list. Thankfully, the COC agreed and began having additional meetings in July, in addition to the regular 3-day meetings to complete the cases on the wait list. The last of which will be reviewed during an additional 2-day meeting in October. Cases closed is the number of matters closed in August by commission action, committee action, or closed by staff where the commission is given formal delegation of authority. In August, 391 cases were closed, which is also below the normal range of 400 to 500 cases per month. AG cases refer to cases in which an educator requested an administrative hearing to challenge a recommendation for discipline made by the committee. The commission is represented in these hearings by the Office of Attorney General. The number of cases currently at the administrative hearing request is 134, and that's below the equilibrium. I might be happy to answer any questions.
Do commissioners have any questions from Mr. Gonzalez regarding the current workload report? Oh, yes, Commissioner Hartley.
Good morning, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you, as always, for this workload report. I don't have a question, actually. I just have an appreciation to express to the Division of Professional Practices for keeping up the excellent pace during the COVID pandemic. And also, I really wanted to pass on thanks to the Committee of Credentials as well as to the Division of Professional Practices for adding on an additional 2-day meeting every month since July, in addition to the monthly 3-day meeting, in order to make sure that we don't get behind because of the meetings that were canceled in the beginning of the pandemic. And so I really appreciate the dedication to make sure that we're able to keep the wonderful momentum that the Committee of Credentials and the Department of Professional Practices has been able to establish. So thanks so much for that hard work, and please pass on my appreciation to the committee.
Will do.
We should open for public comment. Madam Secretary, do we have any requests to speak on this item?
We do not have any request on this item.
All right, back to the commissioners. Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much, Commissioner Hartwig, for recommending or for recognizing the extraordinary work of our Committee of Credentials. It really is an extraordinary job on any ordinary basis, but to add 2 additional days every single month to additional review is way beyond expectations. All right, we can move then to item 3B, which is our annual report, annual workload report. Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay. I will now present the annual report on the discipline workload of the Division of Professional Practices. First, some background information. To ensure a high level of public confidence in California teachers and other credentialed public and school employees, DPP monitors the moral fitness and professional conduct of credential applicants and holders. The Commission has the authority to discipline an applicant or holder or fitness-related misconduct. Disciplinary action can be taken based on the applicant or holder's immoral or unprofessional conduct, evident unfitness for service, refusal to obey laws regulating certificated duties, unjustified refusal to perform under unemployment contracts, or intentional fraud or deceit in an application. DPP collects information concerning alleged misconduct and presents the information to the Committee of Credentials. The COC includes 3 credential holders employed in public schools, an elementary school teacher, a secondary teacher, and an administrator. There's also 1 school board member and 3 public members. The COC has the legal authority to close an investigation where the evidence does not support the allegations, or to recommend discipline where the evidence shows probable cause to believe the allegations. All disciplinary recommendations made by the COC are subject to appeal by the credential applicant or holder and final approval by the Commission. I will not go into portions of the reports. In fiscal 2019-2020, COVID-19 had a notable impact on DPP's workload. DPP's monthly caseload began and ended within the current caseload range of 2,600 to 2,800 cases. The year began with a low of 2,629 cases in July 2019 and increased to a high of 2,951 in March 2020 before decreasing during the last quarter of the fiscal year and ended with 2,647 total cases. The number of cases open. DPP opened 4,951 cases, which is considerably fewer than the average of 5,649 cases opened during the previous 5 fiscal years. DPP was on pace to open approximately 5,784 cases during the fiscal year, based on an average of 482 cases opening at the beginning of the fiscal year through February 2020. During the last quarter, an average of 241 cases were open per month, which is significantly below the number of the normal range of 400 to 500 cases. Where did the cases come from? The number of cases opened by report type have remained consistent over the prior fiscal years, as noted in the graph below. In 2019-20, we had an overall decrease of 479 cases when compared to 2018-19. The main decreases by report type included 200 fewer 9 rap sheet cases and 90 affidavit cases. School district cases continue to report an increased number of cases when compared to early 2012 and prior, when the Commissioner received between 200 and 250 district reports annually. In fiscal year 2010-2011, district reports were about 3% of new cases. In this current fiscal year, district reports, including breach of contract complaints, remain at approximately 12% of all new cases. What was the credential status of persons reported to the Commission? New cases opened by designation indicate whether an individual review is a new or current applicant or whether the person currently holds a credential. The two designation categories that decreased and was expected given the overall reduction of cases included 421 holder cases and 190 first-time applicant cases. Again, prior to February, DPP was on pace to open 2,436 holder cases and 2,196 first-time applicant cases, which is comparable to most current fiscal years. This did not occur as we began receiving fewer reports of misconduct beginning in March and through the last quarter of the fiscal year. What types of misconduct were alleged? As in years past, the number of alcohol-related offenses remained the highest misconduct type, but also included a significant decrease of cases when compared to 2018-19. Other welcome decreases included misconduct included non-sexual child crimes, sexual, and adult sexual cases. The number of cases reviewed by the Committee of Credentials. DPP completed 1,081 initial review cases despite the cancellation of the March 2020 COC meeting due to COVID-19. This was the lowest number of LOIs completed in the last 5 years, as can be seen in the initial review graph on page 3B4. But was still an average of 90 cases per month, which was a prior goal set in May 2013. In March 2018, management had increased the number of initial review cases presented to the COC for approximately 18 months, which was intended to limit the growth of the overall caseload. DPP achieved that goal as the overall caseload dropped to 2,601 cases in June 2019. Therefore, in October of 2019, the average number of initial review cases presented to the COC was reduced to approximately 95 cases per month. The number of initial review cases has a direct impact on the number of formal review cases placed on the agenda for COC review. At the formal review stage, an individual can request an opportunity to testify and answer questions before COC members. In fiscal year 2019-20, the number of formal cases had a significant decrease beginning with the cancellation of the March meeting and through the end of the quarter. As I stated in the monthly report, in addition to the cancellation of the March meeting, the COC reviewed only non-appearance cases due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. This resulted in the overall lower number of formal review cases reviewed in 2019-18. One factor that continues to reduce the overall caseload is the number of consent calendar cases presented to the committee. The committee reviewed an average of approximately 95 cases per month on the consent calendar, including a high of 188 cases for the April meeting that included cases from the cancellation of the March meeting. Okay. How many cases were closed by commission delegation to staff? The next set of graphs includes where the commission adopted policies in 2012 and 2013, and that delegated authority to staff to close cases met very specific criteria. For example, the commission adopted a policy that allowed staff to close a case that involved a single alcohol-related offense that did not impact children or schools. Staff closed 973 alcohol cases this fiscal year. Other delegations include no jurisdiction cases, which involve cases where the commission is unable to obtain formal jurisdiction. By law, the COC must have both initial and formal jurisdiction before a COC can make a recommendation for discipline. Staff closed 650 no jurisdiction cases. Vehicle code violations cases involving specific minor infractions or misdemeanors under the vehicle code include driving without a license or driving on a suspended license. Staff closed 60 cases. Expired credential cases involve cases where the educator no longer holds a valid credential and has no application pending. Cases of this type are flagged in the system and reviewed if the individual submits a new application. Go down to adverse actions. Adverse actions fall into two categories: mandatory and discretionary actions. Mandatory actions are actions required by statute. A criminal conviction for a specified sex offense, drug offense, or certain other specified crime requires the commission to mandatorily revoke all credentials. Mandatory revocations are placed on the commission's consent calendar for information at the next scheduled commission meeting. Discretionary actions are actions taken following an order by the commission in cases where the COC recommended an adverse action. The COC recommendations may be accepted by the credential holder or applicant, or it may be appealed. On appeal, an administrative hearing is held before a final action is taken by the commission. Request for an administrative hearing. At the formal review stage, the COC may close its investigation or make a recommendation for adverse action. The person under review for misconduct is provided notice of the recommendation and their right to request an administrative hearing. Again, if the person requests an administrative hearing, the commission is represented by the Office of Attorney General. The number of open cases assigned to the OHG for representation increased in fiscal year 2019-20, but remains below the equilibrium previously set by the AG's office. The OED adjudicates the commission's cases by administrative hearing, default, withdrawal by the educator, and settlement or declining to prosecute. The chart listed at the bottom of page 3B. That shows there was a decline in the number of cases completed when compared to the last 2 fiscal years by the AG's office. DAG request, Deputy Attorney General DAG request. DVP's investigation unit was expanded during the 2016-2017 fiscal year and assigned a new task of assisting the OAG in clearing its backlog of commission cases, which has been accomplished. In providing the support to the OAG, the investigation unit locates victims and witnesses, as well as obtains affidavits and other types of documents to assist DAGs in the preparation for hearing to the clear and convincing evidence standard. We started the fiscal year with 5 pending OAG investigation requests left over from the previous fiscal year, completed 40, and ended with 19 pending requests. Reinstatement of previously revoked credentials. The commission hears petitions for reinstatement as required by the Administrative Procedures Act in closed session to determine whether petitioners whose credentials were revoked are now fit to hold a credential. In a petition for reinstatement, the petitioner has the burden of proof to show that he or she has rehabilitated from the misconduct that led to the revocation. During the past 5 years, the number of petitions reinstated per year has remained pretty consistent. Timeliness of action on cases. In response to the 2011 Bureau of State Audit reports, staff followed a methodology used by the state auditor to measure the timeliness of 30 random cases completed during the 2019-20 fiscal year. While the auditor used a random sample of cases closed by the division or reviewed by the COC, staff used a more rigorous sample using only cases reviewed by the committee. Of the 30 random sample cases, 1 case was removed as an outlier that involved a delay in receiving criminal records. As indicated in the timeliness chart on page 3B10, DVP has made significant improvements in timeliness when compared to the findings of the audits. The average time it takes to open the case was reduced from 128 days to 1. The average time it takes the division to take its first action on a case was also reduced from 103 to 10 days. And the overall total average time for a case was reduced from 683 days to 394 days, while the median was reduced from 721 to 425. Conclusion. Fiscal year 2019-20 was shaping up to include an equal, if not higher, number of total cases processed in many of the categories mentioned above, based on the overall totals as of February 2020. In March, the COVID-19 became an unexpected factor that caused various disruptions, which included the following. The majority of the commission staff began telecommuting in March 2020. Fewer reports of misconduct were received by DPP to include first-time applicant cases with self-disclosure, school district reports, and cases involving raptures from the Department of Justice. There was a significant decrease in the number of cases open and closed during the last quarter of the fiscal year. The March 2020 COC meeting was canceled. Travel restrictions required appearance cases to be canceled during the April, May, and June 2020 meetings, which resulted in approximately 85 to 90 cases being delayed. School district, law enforcement, courts, and other agencies were temporarily closed and or staff reduced, which caused delays in obtaining records and thus delaying processing of DPP cases. Despite COVID-19 and the issues noted above, the 2019-20 highlights include the following. DPP's monthly caseload ended the fiscal year at 2,647 cases, well within the normal range of 2,600 to 2,800 open cases. The division goal to reduce the overall caseload was reached in October 2019, and it allowed management to reduce the number of initial review cases presented to the committee. Commission staff completed 1,081 initial review cases, or an average of 90 cases per month. The number of open cases assigned to the OAG continued to decline and is currently at equilibrium or better. DPP maintained a significant improvements in timeliness when compared to the 2011-2012 BSA audit. Division staff transitioned to telecommuting with little disruption in processing of the caseload. And the COC team adjusted their normal meeting process and began reviewing cases remotely beginning with the April 2020 COC meeting and will continue that process during 2021. An additional highlight, as noted in the October workload report, the COC began reviewing an increased number of formal cases in July 2020 during 1 or 2 day meetings in addition to the normal 3-day meetings. The additional meetings are due to complete the delayed appearance cases that will be completed by the COC during the final 2-day meeting in October. Despite COVID-19 and the issues and disruptions it caused, Commission staff is pleased to report DPP continues to fulfill its statutory responsibilities of protecting the safety of school children and the due process of California educators. In addition, DPP staff made a seamless transition to telecommuting and maintained a caseload processing in the same manner and at the same level prior to COVID-19. Therefore, the number of initial review cases presented to the COC will remain at the 90 to 95 monthly case range. Management will monitor the overall caseload and determine whether to implement a change in the number of monthly initial review cases. I would like to thank DPP staff for their continued dedication to the workload and their ability to make the transition to telecommuting. I was concerned about the effect of the telecommute change and our ability to meet deadlines, but they've done an outstanding job. I would also like to thank the COC and legal for their ability to make a similar transition and specifically to add 4 additional meetings to their already hectic monthly schedules to complete the delayed appearance cases. We ask you out of the committee on a normal basis, but they've gone above and beyond. So thank you to the committee. They are very much appreciated. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. Really an excellent full report that for those that have had a chance to dig into the numbers, really a great deal of data. I would recommend that you keep handy that report to compare against months going forward. But it really is remarkable that we've been able to come anywhere near the goals that we set some 10 years ago in 2011. I'd like to open item 3B for public comment. Madam Secretary, are there any requests to speak on item 3B?
We do not have any requests. Thank you.
It's always a big disappointment to me that the public isn't more interested in how we're doing, because we're doing really well. And that's all due to, as Mr. Gonzalez recognized, the extraordinary efforts of our staff, and not just staff of professional practices, but also our legal staff and, of course, the Committee on Credentials. Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Hartwig.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Thank you again, Mr. Gonzalez. This is an incredibly informative report, and I just I have a number of questions so that I can understand it in as much detail as possible. And I just want to follow on Commissioner Cooney's comment right now about the public not necessarily knowing all of the excellent work that is being done by the DPP. So I think this is one of the few moments during the year when we really get a chance for the public to understand all of the incredibly important work that the DPP and legal do in our disciplinary work. Because as we well know, as the commissioners well know, and the staff well knows well, along with administering credentials and accrediting training bodies and institutions, providing action on and discipline related to teacher credentials is one of the 3 pillars of the work that the commission does. And it's incredibly important work to both protect school children and, of course, protect the due process rights of our credential holders. But of course, because we need to conduct all of this in closed session in terms of the individual cases to protect the due process rights of our credential holders and protect privacy, the public doesn't have an insight into this work other than through the helpful monthly reports and this report. So I really want to highlight this moment in our calendar for people to be able to understand the very important work that goes on through agency staff, the commission, the committee of credentials, and then of course the commission on acting on considering and sometimes acting on credential holders' credentials. I would definitely echo Commissioner Cooney's note about keeping this report handy, and I would really commend to all the commissioners and to the public that not only does this report provide very useful information about outcomes and processing, it's also a very handy guide for step by step through what the disciplinary process for credential holders looks like. And so when you read this, you can really understand quite well what happens first, what happens next, and what happens all the way up until an action may actually appear on the agenda for the commission. I really recommend looking at it, looking through the report to understand that clearly. So I have just a number of questions to make sure that I fully understand the report and for some areas of knowledge that I need. So I'd appreciate if we could just walk through a number of these questions from the report. One question that I have has to do with where cases come from geographically. And my interest and concern there is I know that this process of opening cases really is not one of the commission going out and gathering information. It is acting on information that we receive. So it's not a proactive process where we can make sure that we are gaining the information we need from every source that we possibly have. We really have to rely a lot on information coming in, of course, from applicant holders themselves, but then also from school districts. So I'm not sure that this is something that we do at all, but I was interested in knowing whether we have any sense of the geographic distribution of where credential holders work for where our matters are opened. And my interest there is, of course, just to know, are there any concerning gaps where, for instance, we may have some school districts where for years we haven't received any reports of disciplinary issues. I know that it's a requirement for school districts to respond, but I'm interested in whether we know anything about that.
I've really never looked into geographically where cases come from. That's not something we've considered or tallied in any way. So I just wouldn't know those numbers. I'd have to look into that.
I guess the follow-on question then would be, and this isn't necessarily a question for you to answer with what your role is, but whether we ever have concerns that, whether we have confidence that districts across the state are consistently and timely reporting. I know we've had a huge increase in districts reporting so that it's up to 12% from 3% over the last 10 years. So that seems very encouraging and confidence building. But it also then, of course, raises the question that 10 years ago, if only 3% of our cases were coming in, then perhaps districts weren't reporting as actively as they should.
We don't actively request or look for cases, everything that's submitted to us. But if we do find that there's an instance where we come across a criminal case where that wasn't reported through a school district and should have been, we'll send a letter. But that's to the extent of it.
Thanks. When we look at the new cases opened by report type, could you explain to me what's the difference between application and rap sheet? The ones with application but no rap sheet, there's some non-criminal issue why we open the case. What would those cases be?
An application case with somebody who's self-reporting whatever misconduct they have in the past, and an application and rap sheet, that's a combination. We receive both an application with misconduct and a rap sheet is also received at approximately the same time. So we added that report type, and we've had that for a while now. So it's a combination of the two. Rather than try to put that case to one or the other, there's the combined app-rap category.
So the first category would be folks who do not have a rap sheet. There's nothing created for them in the criminal system.
Not necessarily. They may have reported it on their own. They may have reported something, and we eventually get the rap sheet. But it's more of a timing issue with those.
Got it. Okay.
And then the app-rap, we receive at the same time, kind of thing.
I see. Okay, thank you. So I was interested, one thing that you note that was surprising was that applicant cases had reduced, had increased this year by almost 100, I guess, from 619 to 714. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be? You noted that it was surprising, so I was interested in hearing your thinking behind why that might have happened.
Well, given the overall decrease in cases, I was surprised that increased. I was expecting across the board everything to kind of drop since we had the 490 some odd cases that fell. But as you can see, the first time applicants, that was a real decrease in cases there. So I expected a kind of across the board drop in cases when it comes to applicants, when it comes to all designations.
Okay, thanks. One thing that I thought would be helpful to explain is, could you explain the process for which, how does a matter end up on the consent calendar for the Committee of Credentials? We understand how they end up on our consent calendar. How do they end up on the consent calendar for the COC?
Okay, those are cases with minor misconduct. They're like older DUI cases, petty theft, resisting arrest, reckless driving, just lower level misconduct. And we place, when the initial report is made, we categorize them as to potential COC case as an initial review or a potential consent calendar case. And once we get all the documents, then we follow through with the level of review that's going to go. So it's basically the consent calendar cases are the lower level of misconduct.
And for those then, do you make a recommendation? It's on the consent calendar, you make a recommendation of how the Committee of Credentials should?
No, the allegations are, the information is placed on the consent calendar, and they make the recommendation based on the information provided.
Okay, but they're flagged basically as lower level cases that can
Correct.
be through more quickly.
Correct.
Okay. thank you for taking the time. I know these are a lot of small questions, but again, I don't have that many opportunities to ask these questions, and so I'm taking the opportunity now. One of the types of cases that you're able to close are, of course, cases where we don't have jurisdiction, and that's true in any body that's adjudicating. When you don't have jurisdiction, you can't adjudicate. I was interested in whether we know anything about the character of these cases for which we have no jurisdiction, whether they're similar in type to the types of cases that we do have jurisdiction for. So, for instance, are there lots of alcohol-related cases, or do we know anything about the character of these cases? I know there's nothing that we can do about them, but I'm interested to know whether they reflect the rest of our caseload, or whether there's anything distinctive about them. Do you have any ideas about that?
Really haven't tallied any information, that type of information, but they are cases where we receive an arrest report that causes us to open a case, and if there's no criminal conviction, then we have no jurisdiction to follow through with the case. Or depends on the type of case, maybe we're not able to obtain an affidavit, so we can't follow through with the prosecution of the case. But no, that's another thing we don't really track.
Understood. Yeah, no, I know that's not part of your reporting. I was more out of just interest and curiosity.
Right.
And it seems like those have been fairly steady in terms of numbers, that's a pretty steady percent of our work.
Right.
So one thing that I noted that was an interesting change over the last 2 years in terms of disposition or steps of the cases is that over the last 2 years, the number of matters that have been appealed from the committee's decision to an administrative law judge seems to have significantly reduced in the last 2 years. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
The cases assigned to the Office of Attorney General, is that?
Yeah, and just so that I understand, those reflect the number of credential holders who are appealing the decisions of the committee, right? So fewer credential holders appear to be appealing decisions of the committee from what I can see from your charts.
Well, we actually we had a high in 2016-17, and the AG's office devoted more staff and resources to reduce those numbers, and so that's why you see the reduction of cases. We've actually been sending over 10 to 12 cases a month, and that's been consistent over the last couple of years, last 2 or 3 years. So it's really the reduction of cases that they've completed on their end, which is why the numbers have dropped.
I got it. Okay. I was misreading that, thinking of new cases, but I see it's just working through the backlog. Working through the open caseload. That's great.
And that's where they had set at the equilibrium of about 150 cases, and they've, of course, reached that and gone beyond, below that number. So we're currently at 134, as I stated in the other report.
Right. Okay, great. Then I had a question about the consent determinations from the ALJ, which is a significant portion of the matters that do end up in front of an ALJ end in a consent determination. Through our work on the commission, I'm of course familiar with the proposed ALJ decisions that we review and decide to adopt or decide to call for the transcript. But I don't believe that we see the consent determinations. So could you just tell me a little bit more about what the consent determinations look like? Do they vary greatly? I'm asking for a generalization, just more information here. Do they vary greatly from what the Committee of Credentials has found and determined, or how do
That's
they
more of a
play
legal
out?
question. So I would defer that to Vanessa. Are you on?
Yes, hi, good morning, Commissioner Hartwig. In response to your question, the consent determinations are actually on your consent calendar for your approval. So if you ever see your consent calendar has all of those, so they cannot be adopted without you. So those are proposed consent determinations for your approval. And the way those happen is that the individual has requested an administrative hearing to challenge the recommendation of the Committee of Credentials. And when they do that, Mary Sandy files an accusation or a statement of issues, and the Office of the Attorney General represents us. In the course of that, their office, the Office of the Attorney General, submits investigative requests back to Gill's unit, the investigations unit, in order to prepare the case to the clear and convincing evidence standard, because the committee standard is probable cause. And in the course of that, our lawyers in our office, in conjunction with the DAGs, are looking at that evidence that is being developed to go to trial. And if there's a determination made that the evidence does not meet the clear and convincing evidence standard, and it doesn't prove all of the things that were alleged at the committee phase, then there may be negotiations of settlement that are brought back and proposed to you. So you're not going to receive a proposed consent determination unless both my office and the Office of the Attorney General believe that it is in the best interest of the client, i.e. the commission, to settle that case. So that's where those come from.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Now I'm lining up what those are and what this number is. Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And I just had one note, which was, and which Mr. Gonzalez, you noted in your presentation, which was, I'm very pleased to see that the resources devoted to the expansion of our internal investigation unit in 2016 and 17 has really been seems like a good deployment of resources in order to help the Office of the Attorney General reduce the backlog and clear the backlog. So I appreciate seeing that use of resources has been very effective.
Right.
Then just one final question. I know that, do you expect that there is any backlog of reporting of cases that has happened during the beginning of the pandemic and through now that might create some kind of a surge next year in terms of new cases that are being opened? For instance, if school districts are dealing with other things and then they meant to report and didn't report and it opens, do you expect any kind of an increase in the coming year?
It seems that we've received fewer applications in licensing, and so we get a percentage of those, of course. So I do think that there has been a drop off on our end of applications that we received with self-reported misconduct. There's also been a reduction of school district reports by approximately 30 cases per month. So will that increase? I imagine it will. Either, and I don't know if that would be considered a backlog on their end, but it's just a matter of time before they go back to normal numbers. And that's why I kind of want to continue with the 90 LOIs per month, just to ensure that we're not caught with an influx of cases at a later date.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you again. I just want to express to the Division of Professional Practices, our legal team, and the Committee of Credentials again, thanks for the incredible work that is done, looking at the impressive improvement in numbers that Commissioner Cooney mentioned over the last 9 years, going from an average of 683 days to get to the finish line for a matter to 394 days is really extraordinary. And I know that this has been done with the very highest level of excellence and in terms of how we deal with the matters. And so I really want to applaud the work that has gone into that incredible change and express support for continuing that. So thank you again for this very thorough report and for answering my multiple questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartwig. It looks like we rehearsed our presentation on the annual report, but it's entirely due to your interest and helpful to all of us. Do others have comments or questions on the annual report or anything Commissioner Hartwig raised? Looking for hands. No virtual hands. I'll just make one comment for the benefit of Commissioner Hartwig's question on the superintendent's reports that used to be around 3%, I think you heard you say, and have increased to 12%. We did have or notice a problem years and years ago. Our executive director, Sandy, may remember exactly when, but the commission made an active effort to remind county superintendents of schools that they have a statutory obligation to make sure the schools in their jurisdiction are reporting all cases, all settlements. It was the case that, for example, Los Angeles Unified School District was entering into settlements, and those were not necessarily reported to us as resignations with outstanding charges pending. So it's improved by that effort we made years and years ago. Executive Director Sandy, do you remember about how many years ago?
I think we began that in the spring of 2012.
Okay. Commissioner Hind.
Just gonna add on, that was an assembly bill. I lobbied it. That was great. It was a good time. It was signed by the governor, I think, in 2013.
Good. Well, it's been adhered to some degree for sure. Anybody else? Thank you all for participating and listening in. And this is not an end to the questioning. If more questions come up, I know Mr. Garcia would be happy to respond offline. If there's nothing more, then I will conclude the actions of the Professional Practices Committee and return the chair to Chair Sloan, conduct of the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez and Commissioner Hartwig. That was very helpful, I think, for all of us. Next is the Legislative Committee. Commissioner Hind, will you please convene the committee?
Thought you'd never ask. I now convene the October 2020 meeting of the Legislative Committee. The committee has one item before it today. I would like to remind members of the public that wish to speak on this item to please email your request to comments@ctc.ca.gov or call 916-322-6253. Please make sure that the requests include your full name, phone number if participating through phone only, your affiliation, and the agenda item number and title. Make sure the name you provide matches the name used to join the meeting. At the appropriate time, the meeting host will change the individual's permissions and ask that they turn on their camera and unmute their microphone to share their comment. At the conclusion of the speaker's comments, the meeting host will remove the individual's permission and their camera and microphone will be disabled. Item 5A is status of legislation. This is an information item that will be presented by Sasha Horwitz. Mr. Horwitz, please begin.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. 2020 has been quite a year for all of us, and it was no different for the activity taking place in the state legislature. As I update you on the status of legislation, I always find it useful to begin by orienting us to the current point in the legislative cycle before providing any specifics on bills. On August 31st, the legislature formally recessed and brought the 1920 legislative session to a close. Successful measures were sent to the governor, who had until September 30th to sign bills into law or veto them. All new laws go into effect starting January 1st, 2021, unless they are part of the budget or have a special urgency provision. While measures introduced during the 1920 session that did not pass are considered dead, any proposal may be reintroduced in a future session. Since I spoke to you last, I'm happy to share that the governor signed an extension of the flexibilities originally adopted in May as part of Executive Order N6620. These extensions were included as part of SB 820, a budget trailer bill. The expiration dates for these temporary flexibilities have been pushed back 1 year, and because they were in a budget bill, they went into effect immediately. As you will remember, the Executive Order and now SB 820 provide the following flexibilities to candidates affected by COVID-19. First, teachers and administrators who are on track to complete preparation this year and have successfully met all other credential program requirements may earn a preliminary credential and complete their Teaching Performance Assessment, or CAL-TPA, their Administrative Performance Assessment, or CAL-APA, and or the Reading Instructional Competence Assessment, or RICA, prior to earning a clear credential. With their preliminary credential, these teachers and administrators will be able to accept jobs and complete these assessments during their induction program with support from their program mentors and coaches. For performance assessments, this is applying to candidates during the 1920 and or 2021 school years. For RICA, this applies to the period from March 19th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. Next, credential program applicants who are unable to take the California Basic Skills Test, or CBEST, prior to admission to a commission-approved credential program may now complete the CBEST during their program. This applies to the period from March 19th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. Finally, current university intern program candidates who are unable to complete their subject matter examination, or CSET, to begin teaching as district interns in the subject they are enrolled in, now must complete both requirements prior to being recommended for a preliminary credential. This provision applies to the period from March 19th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. At this point, I'd like to take a break and see if there are any questions before continuing.
All right, I see one from our student liaison. Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
It's a quick question. Can you go over real quick just how legislation works, how it's passed, how bills go through both houses and things like that?
Sure, happy to. So at the beginning of a legislative year, actually every legislative year is 2 years long. It's divided into a first year and a second year. At the beginning of every year, legislators are able to introduce bills, and those bills go through a legislative process in the House of Origin. So in the Assembly, that means they'll go through policy committees. Sometimes they will go through a fiscal committee like appropriations, and then they will go onto the floor of that House. If they're successful in all of those committees, then they'll switch to the other House and begin that process over again, going through the policy committee, a fiscal committee, and then the floor. Bills that successfully go through both houses and are the same version passed in both houses go directly to the governor's desk. Those that are not identical need to go through an extra process where they reconcile differences. Then the governor, during a normal part of the year, has 2 weeks to sign or veto legislation. And then near the end of session has an extended period of time because there's a lot more bills that come to the governor's desk at once. So bills passed during the end of session have a 30-day window for the governor to sign or veto. Any bill is going to go into effect at the beginning of the next beginning of the next calendar year, except certain bills which have an urgency, which means that they require a larger vote percentage, a supermajority, in order to pass both houses. And those bills are considered to be more urgent, and so they go into effect immediately. And then budget bills go into effect at the beginning of the fiscal year, which begins on July 1st and ends on June 30th of the next year.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. So Mr. Hortz, if you want to continue, you may.
Thank you, Commissioner. So moving on to legislation of interest, this year the Commission had sponsored 2 bills, AB 2541, our pre-accreditation clarification bill, and AB 2485, our bill addressing flexibility to subject matter or CSET requirements. Commissioners also took a support position on one bill, AB 1982, the CBEST coursework alternative bill. As staff discussed at the last meeting, due to the disruptions to legislative business caused by COVID-19, none of these bills was granted a hearing in the Senate Education Committee, meaning they were unsuccessful. The Commission can reintroduce these bills next year, and at the December meeting, staff will present proposals for your consideration. Staff has already begun conversations with the legislature and has already heard that Assemblymember Kalra is interested in reintroducing the subject matter bill next year. Staff closely monitored 6 other bills this year. With one exception, none of those measures was heard by any committee, and they died early in the legislative process. The one remaining bill that staff had monitored was SB 614 by Senator Rubio. As we discussed in the August meeting, SB 614 would have made substantial changes to the Reading Instruction Competence Assessment, or RICA statute. Commission staff has been working closely with the legislature and stakeholders to provide technical assistance and analysis that ensures the enacted version of the bill would be workable in the current environment. The bill passed the Assembly Education Committee and moved to appropriations, where it was held under suspense, meaning it did not move forward and was not given a vote. Staff is continuing to work with stakeholders who have indicated that they plan to reintroduce the bill next session and are currently discussing ways to improve the bill. With that, my presentation for item 5A is concluded. I want to thank you, commissioners, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let me get back to my script here. We are now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do. The first is Ann Wolf. If you please state your name and affiliation for the record. Please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Sorry, my name is Ann Wolf and I am representing myself. I was very disappointed to learn that AB 1982, the bill that gave those with learning disabilities another option to enter a teacher credentialing program, did not pass. I understand why the Senate chose to only hear bills that dealt with issues relating to COVID. However, I can easily make a case that this bill does relate to COVID because it would help with the growing teacher shortage we are facing. It would help those who, like me, are unable to pass the CBEST due to learning disabilities and are given no other options to enter a teacher credentialing program. Teachers are choosing to retire right now because they do not want to be forced to have to choose between their health and their family or their job. Teachers are exhausted at the lack of support they have been given by their administrators and districts, so they are choosing to leave the educational field altogether. AB 1982 would have helped to make more qualified people, get more qualified people into teacher credentialing programs. This bill would help so many who are discriminated against due to their learning disabilities and have no other options other than to keep paying the fees just to try to pass the CBEST. As I have said before in my previous comments to the Commission over the last year, I have taken the CBEST 5 times. I have successfully passed both the reading and the writing portions. It is the math portion that I have been unable to pass due to my math learning disability. I have come close to passing with a score of 36. However, I need a 37 to pass. The next time I tried to pass the math portion, I scored a 29. Close, but unfortunately not close enough. Passing a standardized test is not a way to prove my ability to be a good educator. Entering a credentialing program should not be solely based on test measures. The successful completion of the curriculum in the program is the true test to one's ability to be a teacher. Changing Educational Code 44252 has been a passion project for me, and it has held me back in my career as an educator due to my math learning disability. The position I currently hold in my district is Educational Technology Support. Due to this pandemic, there have been many educational technology positions open up in different schools. However, most are requiring a teaching credential. That piece of paper I do not have. However, I do have a master's in educational and instructional technology. I meet and exceed all of the requirements these positions are asking for, except for having a teaching credential. This is now my third time my third time speaking in front of the Educational Commission about this issue, and I am sure it is not my last. I refuse to give up. I will continue to stand up and be the voice for those who are discriminated against due to their learning disabilities. To Assemblyman Cunningham, who introduced AB 1982, and to Assemblyman O'Donnell, who is the chair of the committee and my local assemblyman, I implore you to reintroduce this bill. All I am asking for is a fair chance to enter a credentialing program. I do not think that that is too much to ask. I don't know if you guys are allowed to contact me in any way if you have any questions, but feel free to do so if you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. I remember you speaking last time, and I appreciate you coming back. Do we have any more public comment?
Yes, we do. Janet Davis. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. We'll need you to unmute your microphone, Ms. Davis.
There we go. One more thing. Janet Davis, representing the California Federation of Teachers. CFT was disappointed that SB 614 died in committee due to budget concerns, but also the lobbying of dyslexia organizations. Personally, I have experience as a mother of 2 sons with dyslexia. I understand these parents' fears that phasing out RECA will negatively impact teachers' ability to teach their children. If I believed RECA were that magic bullet, I would support keeping RECA, but evidence does not support that belief. And it does negatively impact teacher diversity. And anecdotally, thanks for the previous speaker, I believe it has a negative impact on ed specialist candidates. And I request if we could break the RECA pass scores out between multiple subjects candidates and ed specialist candidates to see if RECA is impacting these groups equally. During this period of time, when we have flexibility, I'm hoping that we can all work together to find solutions that will make sure teachers are prepared to teach reading and that we're not unnecessarily stopping qualified candidates from becoming teachers. One thing the commission could do, I believe, is restructure the CFT, the RECA, into subtests. So candidates would only need to retake the sections that they didn't pass. I don't believe that would require legislative change, but that is a question I'm asking. Moving forward, if RECA were restructured, then it would be possible to pass legislation that would allow candidates to take coursework in place of sections of the RECA they were not able to pass. I'm hopeful that we will be able to integrate foundational reading skills into coursework and a redesigned TPA, and it will be possible to phase out RECA by replacing it with more meaningful reading instruction and experiences and an authentic assessment. I hope the CTC can lead in this effort and help all stakeholders develop confidence that what is developed to take the place of RECA will improve teachers' ability to teach reading to all students.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for coming with solutions. I love that. Great. Recording Secretary, do you have any more public comment?
Yes, Rigel Spencer Massaro. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. Rigel Spencer Massaro with Public Advocates. Public Advocates supported AB 2485. We supported AB 1982, and we supported SB 614. Taken together, I feel quite proud of the Commission, of stakeholders, and of our state legislators for really recognizing that standardized tests are only one way of assessing a credential, a potential credential holder's subject matter, basic skills, and ability to teach foundational reading. I sincerely hope that we have that the Assembly members and the Senator, as well as the Commission, are willing to take up the torch again as soon as possible. And I really want to give very genuine kudos to the Commission and its incredible staff in working very closely to, of course, to sponsor 2485, its work on 1882, and the good work and additions in the latest version of SB 614, which are very much aligned with the comments from Ms. Davis at CFT. So I hope that these were really only delayed because of COVID. I know that reading instruction is a controversial issue, and I know members of our coalition and support are fully committed to continuing to engage with all stakeholders to really get this right. And you look at some of the pass rates in yesterday's item on the teacher supply, we have pass rates as low as 30% on the RECA. And if we don't really look at ensure that we're assessing candidates in the way that research proves is most authentic, which is performance-based assessment aligned with our teacher, for instance, the teacher performance assessment, we're unnecessarily excluding folks from the profession during a time of real shortage, relating yesterday, of course, to the observation that we're having so many more underprepared teachers than prepared teachers in terms of proportion of new teachers coming into the profession. So again, just want to state that we are ready to, again, support these bills, work hard to ensure they pass, and appreciate the Commission's effort on all of them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rigel, for your thoughtful comments. We will definitely be missing you. Recording Secretary, do you have any more public comment?
We do not have any additional comments.
Okay. Thank you to all those from the public who commented on this item. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Commissioners, this is the chance that you've been waiting for to ask questions, comment. I don't see any virtual hands. Right, seeing that, oh, there we go. Commissioner Simmons.
A question about, let me be sure I've got the right bill. 1982. It seems to me that it has a lot less specificity in it than it did to commission meeting before last, when we spent a lot of time looking at it, which I think is a major improvement. Was there any changes since that period of time? It seems to me we spent a lot of time discussing things like whether humanities should count for more than one area and things like that. And it looks to me like this is has a lot less specificity.
So I need to double check which version is before you. But after the last commission meeting where we discussed 1982, we came up with a set of amendments that we presented to Assemblymember Cunningham's office. And they graciously agreed to accept the amendments. And then we came and took a position of support. I'm not sure, based on the timeline, if those amendments are reflected in the version you're looking at. Sometimes if a bill is not moving forward, it doesn't go before the committee and have a chance to introduce those amendments and then appear on the program. So they might not be in print is the terminology we use here. So I'm not entirely sure, but the version that we all discussed at the last commission meeting is the version that the author was planning to move forward with before COVID-19 stopped the committee hearing in the Senate Education Committee.
You have a follow-up, Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, I would it be possible to find the current version? I just pressed the link that was in the item.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not necessarily correct, is what you're saying.
That is the version that's in print, but not necessarily the version that the author's office planned to have once they amended it. So I'm not sure if there were amendments that basically died on a table before they were introduced to the version of the bill that's now in print. Let me see if I can find that information while I'm speaking with you. So the version that you are probably looking at is the version with the amendments as of May 11th, 2020. And the author's office had planned to introduce amendments after that date. So those were never reflected because the bill didn't move forward in the process. And so those amendments never had a chance to be formally adopted.
I would just like to say that as a general premise, where legislation has a lot of specificity, that ties the commission's hands in the future. So, and which is a lot of the reason why RECA is the problem it is. So whenever possible, if regulation could be the way that we deal with things rather than legislation, I think that's preferable.
Let me just jump in here real quick too, David, to your point. I think those are good points, and they are things that we talk about here. This year, as Sasha indicated, was it's been different in all ways, as you know. And I do know that as we are moving forward into conversation this year on several of these bills, the CBES bill being one of them, we will be having conversations that will allow, to your point, that there's enough specificity that the commission and the staff can do their work without it being overly specific in statute, right? And so thank you. I just want to note that that is something that we are also having conversations in and around. One of the pieces that comes with having to do regulations, of course, is that those sometimes can take a couple of years just on the natural through its process. And so we always want to walk a fine line balance between making sure the statute allows enough authority for us to move forward and complete what is the will of the legislation or the statute, but obviously not tie our hands. So.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Yes, Executive Director.
I just wanted to add a little bit of information. We will have the opportunity, I think, as Michelle and Sasha have indicated, to have another go at this in the next legislative session. But related to a question I think that Janet Davis raised about whether or not we could break the current RECA assessment into subtests. We've begun conversations with our contractor about that, and we are looking to move forward with that process of taking the whole test and turning it into subtests that will allow that kind of approach while we await the longer term changes that may occur legislatively next year.
Thank you for that clarification. Other commissioners, comments? Yes, Student Liaison Jones.
I'd also like to mention about the RECA test in terms of students completing it and breaking it up into subtests. I think that is an excellent solution as far as students being able to retake and not have to take the whole thing. I just wanted to suggest that the timing of the test could also be considered, of how much time is given to take the test, because sometimes many students say that they just didn't have enough time to complete it. So when it comes to these subtests and it comes to the big test, that the times are either increased or not touched, because just to make sure that we're just staying consistent and we're kind of thinking about all the ways we can hit on the need.
We appreciate that feedback.
Any other commissioners? I think it's good that we're looking at ways to do things differently as the world changes and we learn more about how we learn and how what we want to see in our next group of teachers. So that said, let me go back and find my script again. You don't want me off script, that's for sure. Oh, I have no additional items today. I adjourn the Legislative Committee. Thank you, Mr. Horwitz.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Hind. We'll move now to agenda item 1H. 1H is the Strategic Plan Development Update. This item will be presented by Executive Director Sandy and Chief Deputy Win. Mary, will you please begin?
Happy to begin. So we started this year with a plan to engage in strategic planning to update the 2014 version of the plan that we last worked on and adopted. We actually thought we'd start in the first half of the year, but other things came up. And in conversations with Chair Sloan and Vice Chair Hind, the question was, should we just put this off till next year when things settle down, or should we begin the process now? Because the events of this year are churning up a lot of our thinking about what we do and how we do it and what we might need to do next. So we chose Plan B to begin the conversations now while we are still really trying to adapt to the new environments that we're in. So we are in the process of, or beginning that process with all of you commissioners. And essentially we see this, and strategic planning usually provides this kind of an opportunity to dig deep, to reflect deeply on, what is your core mission, your vision for that work, the values that guide and direct that work. What are the primary goals and objectives that you seek to achieve over the course of 3, 5, however many years you set the goal for? It also invites your stakeholders into the conversation. The way we have done it heretofore as an agency is to go deep with our stakeholders and invite them to comment and share their thoughts about, where are we with respect to the work that we're mandated to do. So we've had an opportunity to begin that, and Lynn Nguyen is going to give you an overview of the environmental scan that we've been able to conduct. But before we do that, I just want to think again with you about, just remind you of the elements that are in your plan. We currently have a vision statement in your strategic plan that says all of California's students, preschool through grade 12, are inspired and prepared to achieve their highest potential by a well-prepared and exceptionally qualified educators. That's the current vision. And we spent time working on that back in 2014, both in 2012 when we developed the base of this plan, and in 2014 when we updated it. We had the opportunity for off-site time with commissioners, staff, and stakeholders to use kind of a work session approach to looking at this language and making sure that it really captured where the commission that was embodied at that time felt we should be going. The plan also includes a mission statement to ensure integrity, relevance, and high quality in the preparation, certification, and discipline of the educators who serve all of California's diverse educators. Both of these statements give you an opportunity, commissioners, to think about what is it that the legislature has defined as your scope, and what are the qualitative words and thoughts and values that you want to infuse that work with as you communicate yourself, us as an agency, to the public that we serve. We also developed in 2012 and then reframed a little bit in 2014 a set of 5 values that are intended to really set a tone, if you will, set a mindset about how we engage in this work. And they are these. First, we recognize and promote excellence in the preparation and practice of California's education workforce. Second, we value and promote equity, quality, inclusiveness, and diversity in standards, programs, practices, people, and workplace. Third, we are dedicated and committed to the education and welfare of California's diverse students. Fourth, we value the voices, ideas, and understanding of educators, parents, students, our partners, stakeholders, and employees. And finally, we embrace the spirit of innovation that enables us to transform our vision into reality. So that's your current set of values. For the rest of it, we have 4 broad goal areas that really do tie directly to what is it that we're expected to do in the world. The first goal area has to do with educator quality. This set of objectives underneath that goal have to do with our performance expectations, what we expect individual license holders to know and be able to do, and how we go about making sure that they're ready for licensure. So that's focused on the individual educator, that set of objectives. The second is program quality and accountability. This aspect of your plan focuses on your mandates around accreditation, making sure that you have standards that can be met and that are high enough to really achieve our goal for a well-prepared workforce. So all of the program accountability and accreditation work and standards work that guide that fit in that goal section. Third goal area has to do with communication and engagement. We, as a community, this commission, for as long as I've been associated with it, has had both a mandate and, I think, an appetite for working with stakeholders rather than doing to stakeholders. And this goal area captures some of the objectives that you have with regard to engaging our stakeholders in our policy development, seeking feedback upon field review on standards for everything that we do, et cetera, and making sure that we have very good communication ongoing with stakeholders, with other state agencies, the legislature, the administration, et cetera. And then our final goal area has to do with operational effectiveness, and this frames your expectations regarding the management of the agency, that we're timely, that we're responsive, that we treat our personnel well, that we focus on wellness within the body. So that's a brief overview of the current plan that is in place for the commission. So to begin this work, we started with an environmental scan, and what I'd like to do right now is turn it over to Lynn Wynn, who will give you an overview of what we heard back from our stakeholder surveys and from our staff surveys pertinent to the plan. Lynn.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As part of our pre-work for the strategic planning process, we hired Unleashing Leaders to conduct an environmental scan to help us identify key issues and trends impacting the Commission and our stakeholders. The environmental scan included surveys of both external stakeholders and our management team. We received 82 responses from external stakeholders, including 21 responses from organizations or system offices, and 61 from individual institutions and educator preparation programs. You'll find in Attachment A a list of respondents to the external stakeholder survey, and Attachment B provides representative quotes of their responses organized by subject areas. I did want to go through a few of those. Commission staff reviewed, sorted, and analyzed the external survey responses, and several key themes emerged that covered 8 broad categories. The first category is diversity, inclusion, and equity in preparing educators. It was frequently raised by respondents, and their comments took several forms. One was a desire to ensure the education workforce is prepared for California's changing demographics, and that the Commission standards be culturally and racially relevant and responsive to the growing diversity of the state, including linguistic diversity. A second focus was a recommendation to strengthen the focus on implicit bias for teachers and leaders in performance expectations. And we also received a fair number of suggestions to incorporate the hybrid online learning environment. Next, respondents suggested that the Commission apply an equity lens to every policy and action undertaken by the Commission, and to place diversity, equity, and inclusion at the forefront of our work. In the third category, examinations and performance assessments, the comments focused on how the Commission measures and assesses the quality and readiness of beginning educators in regards to licensing examinations and performance assessments, and to study the impact of those measures and monitor their predictive validity. In terms of recruitment, it was suggested that we continue to support and strengthen efforts to recruit a diverse and adequate education workforce. On accreditation, respondents recommended that we review the recently streamlined accreditation system to ensure it is meeting the Commission's vision for performance-based, data-driven process that leads to higher quality educator preparation programs. 6, on data reporting and transparency. The field expressed their appreciation for our increased transparency through our data dashboards, but they wanted more reporting and use of the data for policy analysis, decision-making, and continuous program improvement. Communication was also a frequent topic. Stakeholders consistently expressed appreciation for our office hours and webinars, especially during the upheaval caused by COVID-19. But there is a desire to see this become a more regular, ongoing communication strategy. And finally, in regards to credentialing, stakeholders urged the creation of an early childhood education credential and a strengthening of science and computer science in the multiple subject credential. The final question we asked our external stakeholders was to rate our overall effectiveness. Chart 1 on page 5 of the item shows the distribution of the ratings. Approximately half the respondents rated the Commission's effectiveness at a 7 or higher, and just over a third rated us at a 9 or a 10. Attachment C provides you a sampling of stakeholder comments related to our effectiveness. Turning now to our internal survey, we received responses from 18 members of our management team. The team identified opportunities and trends for the Commission to consider as it develops the strategic plan. And below are the recommendations. Under opportunities, this team suggested that we strengthen our knowledge base around distance learning, increase online and digital access to our services, increase our data usage and literacy, diversify the education workforce, review and update standardized examinations, improve accessibility to information and resources, prioritize reading and literacy instruction and assessment, evaluate and enhance accreditation, and improve stakeholder communication. In terms of trends, the team identified an anti-bias and racial justice trend, COVID-19's impact on the economy, preparation for virtual learning settings for candidates and for students, the increased use of technology, expansion of the entities that can offer educator preparation programs, and the ability to adapt to current and arising issues. That concludes my part of the presentation, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Sandy.
Thank you, Lynn. So overall, commissioners, we think we received a fairly comprehensive amount of feedback related to a lot of the work that we do from many of our stakeholders and staff. Not all stakeholders responded to this work, but the good news is that all of the work you do on strategic planning is public and happens in this kind of session. So the public and our stakeholder communities will have more opportunity to engage with you as we go through it. We have put this together not with the intent that we're going to do a deep dive today. We'll go as deep and as long as you have the appetite and patience for today. But we wanted to give you a sense as we get ready to take our next steps with you. Wanted to give you a sense of what our community had to say about the work of the Commission and where they think some of our top priority focus should be as we consider the next iteration. I've been working with Chair Sloan and Vice Chair Hind on plans for how are we going to structure our time around this. We had in-person retreats off-site for the last two go-rounds, but the in-person and off-site portion, well, we can manage the off-site portion, we just can't manage the in-person portion for a while yet. So with Zoom as our classroom, as our work session workspace, we're looking at what the options might be for having dedicated time, not at the end of a very long and intense meeting per se. So we will be reaching out to you to assess what might be available for you, whether it be half or 2/3 day before the next commission meeting, separate from the commission meeting or adjacent to it. In any event, we will be reaching out to you, and we will, of course, provide adequate notice to the field about any additional scheduled time we have for the commission on this topic. So we're going to turn it over to you now for discussion, reflections, thoughts that you'd like to share. We're listening.
Thank you so much, Mary and Lynn, for the presentation. This is exciting opportunities for us. We'll now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
We do not have any public comments.
All right, then the public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Hind.
Really glad to see this item on the agenda. I'm excited for the work. Hopefully we can do it at the next meeting or before the next meeting. I like the idea of potentially the day before, having a half day. I was part of the strategic planning last time we did, I think in 2011. And it was so valuable for me as a commissioner to learn so much also and really kind of think together with a group of people how we want to move forward and having that input from the field, and everyone really is brainstorming together ideas, and we've moved so much forward. And if you look and see how much work the commission has accomplished with the help of our stakeholders in the past 9 years, it's incredible. So I look forward to doing this again right before I have to leave and setting it up for the next group. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hind. Commissioner Marks.
Just two questions. So reaching out to stakeholders, what does that look like? How are we reaching out to stakeholders? Is it just to our universities? And then is this a place where, because I hear a lot about, recruiting diversity in the teaching pool in our state, but is this a place where we talk about diversity in exposure to curriculum for our student teachers in our state? I feel like there's a lot of incredibly powerful alternatives out there that student teachers never have an option to experience due to tight restrictions and at university levels and teacher training programs. So I'm just wondering how we reach out to stakeholders, and is this a place we look at diversity of curriculum programs?
Mm-hmm. I appreciate those questions, Commissioner Marks. So the way in which our contractor helped us to reach out this time around was to construct a survey. The questions that were asked are listed in the item, early in the agenda item. And we identified, the key stakeholders that have an interest in this work, and heard from many of them. The bulk of the responses, as you probably noted in attachment A, were from institutions of higher education. But that's not the only feedback that we got. We heard from Children Now. We heard from several county offices of education. We did not hear from AXA. We heard from the School Boards Association. We didn't hear from some of the other diversity groups that we reached out to, but we put it out to a fairly broad swath of entities, agencies, organizations that engage regularly with our work. But again, that was a starting point to do an environmental scan to identify big topics. But the real work of deciding which trends are going to be the most important and priority for the Commission lives with you. You are the key stakeholder group here. You've been appointed to do this work and to guide the policy of this work, of the work that we do. So you're getting feedback from some, not all, and over time, we have other opportunities, and certainly the public will have every opportunity to weigh in on the work as it moves forward. In terms of diversity in the curriculum, that's an interesting question. My first hit on that is that we have very little leverage over the curriculum here at the Commission. Our leverage is over the preparation of the education workforce. And within our standards and our performance expectations, we call out things like every teacher needs to learn how to work with Universal Designs for Learning, UDL. Right? Those kinds of things that are curricular in nature. We expect and require that every program work with the state adopted standards and frameworks. Because fundamentally, at the level of what's our mandate, we're preparing teachers to work in the public schools. And there are other agencies that set policy for the curriculum and for testing and accountability. So there needs to be some coordination. So I'd say heretofore we have had at least a basic, if not better than basic, point of connection here within our standards about what is the curriculum. But there are a number of other things that we do within our standards and our expectations, our performance assessments, et cetera. I think one of the qualities that I really value in the approach that this commission has taken is this view of teaching as adaptive practice. This view of teaching that understands that, you know, as Richard Elmore and others have called out the instructional core, they've defined the instructional core as being the interaction between teachers, students, and content in context. A very adaptive practice. That's the orientation we've brought to the way we're setting standards for preparation and trying to encourage innovation. Back in the values statements that I read to you this just a few minutes ago is an appetite for innovation and looking for innovation and understanding that the job of teaching isn't just to follow a recipe. You know, sometimes you need to follow the steps that are laid out for you, but it's really about figuring out how to engage the students who are before you. And in that charge, I think there's a fair amount of creativity available to teachers. That's my view of how we've gone about doing this work. But again, I'd say that is a secondary lever to in terms of getting to the curriculum. I think Commissioner Brown might have her hand up, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I was just having some unstable internet. Please go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
It is so exciting to be in this place together, everyone. And while we may not be able to be together in the same way we were back in 2011, when I was a new commissioner, that work between 2011 and 2014 was fundamental to a both commitment and an educated understanding of what it is to be a commissioner, and how to, you know, really take on the mantle of responsibility to try to lead the state that will prepare California's citizens for their lives. I think that the two pieces that just jump out at me, and you won't be surprised, but I think that this idea of doing an environmental scan, both externally and internally, was brilliant, because if we include the internals, they're the ones that really help us in our daily work. And so I think that was a really good idea. As far as the stakeholders are concerned, I think what we might want to do, and I don't know that we can do it today, but we probably ought to do it before December, is to look at those, in a sense, what the external entities really tried to identify as the key issues, and decide if we think that those are the key issues. Because, of course, I was really glad to hear that the external stakeholders are looking at the ECE credential. That doesn't surprise any of you. But I really felt that there was a consistent and bigger message around diversity and equity, that it's about time. And I think that we should talk seriously about what that means for us as a commission. What should our commission look like? As well as what should our commission focus on and do?
Thank you, Kate. I see Commissioner Wall's hand up, and I wondered with my unstable internet, Janie, if you had another comment too, I'll come back to you, but Commissioner Wall? No, okay.
So I'm deeply appreciative of the process that's begun, and the stakeholder survey and the transparency that's in that, and gathering information. And I keep thinking about how we create an adaptive strategic plan, because what someone says are the needs this week are going to shift next week. And so, I think that the time of, I like to talk about it as permanent whitewater, a permanent change. And so how do we think in adaptive ways in strategic planning as opposed to perhaps linear tasks and outcomes? Because I think that's the mode that we're going to have to be in as there's continued evolutions in the context around us, not just health and physical structure and political, but what are changing technologies. And so I like the notion of the key questions to be asking. Right? What are the key things to think about it? And maybe they're foundational principles. I love the notion, Director Sandy, you put forward about how we think about teaching and just that the adaptive element that you're describing there, that it's not prescriptive, it leaves lots of room. To me, those are foundational concepts that can be built upon in an adaptive strategy. So I just think about how we can make plans for an adaptive future.
That's a great comments. Very helpful. Others? Questions or comments? Liaison Jones.
I have at least about 4 comments to have, so bear with me, everyone. And Commissioner Brown, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated what you said. And I think that what you said, I know that is the vision, that is the want with the CTC, and especially with the vision statement and the mission statement. This surely would be the want to make sure that we reflect our diversity within the CTC, to our educators, to our institutions. And I just have some comments about some of the goals that you all have as the CTC and how we can better include our students in our education preparation programs. So as far as the survey, I guess I have to start off with some questions. I know that they're external stakeholders. My question is, are any of these surveys coming from students?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so I know that there is a need for a connection, like a connection between the CTC and students. I know that even in my experience with just trying to be a student liaison and getting on board and reading all the agenda items, I had issues with understanding all the things. And I do really feel that communication is essential, that the CTC should be an automatic partnership that students have right when they become in an educator preparation program. And a solution to that would be, one is that I know that you all do your visits for accreditation every 6 years, but I do believe visits need to be a little bit more frequent. Not only that, but hearing the voice of the students. So even if on your website you have a tab that says Education Preparation Program Students, and they can click on that tab and it can say new initiatives that's going to directly impact you, survey about how your preparation program is going right now. And so they know that you are a resource. So if they're feeling any type of way about their preparation program, that they're able to reach out to you all. And maybe that can be a way of an investigation, or maybe just even an improvement of an educator preparation program. And seeing our students as stakeholders, seeing them as people who can really give you all some good information about where we can lead our next generation of educators in our programs. And I think that just leads to just information being accessible. I know that's why I want to work. I'm working with my administration to make sure that the CTC, what information we provide, is accessible. But even having like a jargon, like sheet of what does stuff mean, and that would be helpful. Like I was like, it's dead. What does it mean that the bill is dead? Like, what does that mean? But then it got approved in one house. I was like, I just don't understand. So it's just those type of jargons. I know that there's a lot of acronyms it would just be helpful. And digitalizing things on the internet so then it's accessible. I know that I'm no longer at school, so I don't have access to a printer. So it's just making sure that people have access to the things that they need. Along with that, I know that Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Marks, you both mentioned the aspect of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just want to implore all of you, if there is a way that you all can make it so these standards are met and that it can be strongly suggested or recommended that our institutions have any type of cultural competency course, sociology course, any DEI courses that really speak to teaching. I think that that's needed. I did not have any of that in my educator preparation program. I did not have one course that spoke purely on implicit bias, teacher diversity, the history of teaching, the history of teachers in America. And I think that if we had 3 courses, that one was more geared towards like DEI, but more so geared towards history, like US history, world history, institutional racism, anti-racism, and another component being more so on implicit bias and sociology, understanding groups, and then a last component focusing on what does a lens of DEI look like on your curriculum. I feel like those would be just great ways to ensure that our educators come out of their program prepared and somewhat exposed to the things that they're going to be asked for. And last but not least, the testing. And I just wanted to, I guess, just put a little thing in your ears that maybe testing we should also test for cultural competence. We should also test for cultural humility and understanding of different cultures. We should make that a thing that's a level of importance. And if it's not seen as a level of importance, if it's not seen as a test or something that even a course, then how are we going to expect our teachers to go outside of their way to learn X, Y, and Z? So along with the workshops and the professional development, I know that many schools are trying to start. It needs to start earlier on in our educator preparation programs. And I think that is about it. I think that there's a lot of models that we can have for our testing. I think that I forgot who said it before, but there's it was in the last agenda item, but there's many ways to test if a teacher is competent in the area, and I do think that we should really expose our students to those ways as we expect them to expose their students to those ways as well. Thank you, everybody.
Well, Liaison Jones, I don't think anybody wants to go after that.
I would like to, while you're still thinking, those of you who are trying to dream up the question or comment, I did want to let you know, Ms. Jones, that the survey that we did for this environmental scan didn't include a student or candidate group. We don't have a candidate group per se. We have candidates enrolled in 250 different programs in the state, and our access to them is not. There's no central access really that I know of. And if something like that becomes available, you should please share it with us. But we do survey program completers every year now. At the end of their preparation program, we put a survey in front of them where we ask them about many aspects of their preparation, and we collect that feedback, and it is one important source of information that we get about quality and preparation. It's a key source. We obtain it at the end of the preliminary teaching credential program, and then we also survey the community at the end of their induction program. So ideally, we're hearing twice from most of the workforce, if not all of the workforce, at the point where they're done with their program and they're ready to begin, and they're so optimistic about how great this is going to be. And then 2 years later, after induction, they have maybe a little more perspective and reflection on teaching and how well prepared they were. So I totally agree with you that understanding how teachers are experiencing and how candidates and students in programs are experiencing our systems is a key source of information for this body. And I wanted to let you know we don't ignore it entirely. We just didn't get to that community in this strategic plan survey, but there are other ways. It's an important voice.
That's happy. That makes me happy to hear, honestly. It makes me super happy to hear. And I also wanted to add, even with my role as a student liaison, that I would ask the commission to further define my role as a student liaison and really look at what can I do as a student liaison on a broader scale than just coming to these meetings, because I can be utilized. And I know the liaisons after me, I would like to pass down a torch, and I would like to meet with them. I would like to have trainings with them. I would like to talk to them about what can they do. And if we could be a part of that, of uplifting that voice, of looking into those surveys, of making that connection, so you all do have a connection from the CTC to students, I'm down. Okay.
I have an idea. How about you chair the committee?
She's got to have a vote first, but there we go.
Thank you, Corey. This is your comments have been so helpful throughout this entire meeting. And with regards to this item, I would only add that Mary and I have talked for quite some time now, and I think there are just three sort of central things that we keep coming back to: that our desire to learn as we are really thinking about our next phases in our work, and that means all of us learning as a community, and bringing the second thing that is bringing in the people who are deeply engaged in some of the stuff that we want to learn about and practice. And then the third thing is really seeing how we can work through our learning and with other people and with all of you in developing a DEI lens that we apply to both our policy and practice. And we have expertise right here on this Zoom. I was just reading about San Diego Unified's work around equity and the lens that they use there. So I know we have a lot of expertise that can help us here, but the opportunities are exciting and make me really hopeful. Other comments? Questions? Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, as you probably have heard, the department is really moving in this direction also of looking at things through an equity lens. There's been money that's been donated to really explore implicit bias and all of that. And then just in my office, talking about not only diversifying the workforce, but also about the asset-based pedagogies and how that could really lead to, a different look in the curriculum and what we're doing in the classroom and all of that. And I know other departments are probably exploring that. I just know my department, my office, my division, which is equity. It's about equity and excellence and all of that. And I think that that's going to be a driving theme. It's not going to be something that's just in the moment. I think that right now it's in front of everyone, but I think it's my hope is that finally we can start to look at all aspects through that lens and not let up. Because I think sometimes what happens is, there is that moment and then people think that, okay, we went there and now we need to shut that door and then get back into what we used to do. And I think we've passed that moment in time here. And so I'm happy to see that equity lens, especially, and it's going to be something that's going to push people, hopefully, because I think you can get stuck in a very easy moment in time, but we're really talking about there are things that weren't working before the pandemic, and people are acknowledging that those things weren't working, but the key is going to be don't leave that thought and try to go back to what was before the pandemic. And I think as a commission, we're going to have to really be serious about that, about not trying to go back, but really push forward. And I think that what Liaison Jones was trying to say, that's one of those aspects, the voice, not only in the field, the voice of students, the voice of families and all of that, but our commission has a good role in listening to the voices of our aspiring educators and really seeing what those needs need to be going forward in a new way, maybe that hasn't been there before. So I think this is a great opportunity to get into strategic, planning and really begin to see this differently, because so many articles, so many studies and research have said that teacher preparation is really the key to how we can move the system beyond what it has been. That hasn't really worked for all students, if we're being honest with ourselves. So there is a potential for us to really move this. So I appreciate all the remarks that everyone has contributed and looking forward to the work that we're going to do.
Oh, I think we may have lost the chair, but I do see your hand, Commissioner Martinez. She'll be back.
We hope. I'm just going to kind of channel and echo Commissioner Wall and others. But Mary, I really liked your focus on innovation, but most importantly, your language around engaging students. And in this kind of whitewater area, that will be kind of our new norm is this volatility and ambiguity and complexity. And so how do we design around this kind of volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment that we will be living in throughout the 21st century? And therefore, how do we ground that in student-centeredness and engagement? And that applies to what came up with the stakeholders around this online virtual environment. Now it's more important than ever that our teachers understand how to engage students using the learning sciences, how to engage students using authentic assessments, where they can apply their knowledge, where they can develop the 21st century skills. So now is more important than that ever that California shifts as a state to elevating those skills for our students and elevating our teachers' capacity to do that online or offline.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I'm sure you noticed I got knocked out of our room for a little bit. On Tuesday, I was in the middle of teaching class and my power went out. And it went out for 10 hours. Gosh. I know. Other comments and questions, commissioners? Okay, well, as you know, this is not the end of this by any means. And both of the need to be adaptive and the need to keep a strong focus on the diversity and equity lens and not go back to the way we were before. I think those are just two things that I'm going to hang on to here. And now this is an information item and no action is needed. So thank you all. Thank you, Mary and Lynn, and onward. All right, agenda item 1L, sorry, report of closed session items. Commissioner Hind, would you report on our closed session?
I will. Let me just find it. 1 second. Okay.
You have help.
Staff briefed the commission on the cases of Commission on Teacher Credentialing, Mary Armstrong, Lee Pope v. Kathleen Carroll, Emily Ismail v. CTC, Commission on Teacher Credentialing v. Kathy Little, Simone Kovatz, Deborah Sather, and Star Ann Myers, and Linda Stern v. California Commission on Teacher Credentialing does 1 through 25, and no reportable action was taken. The commission granted the following petitions for reinstatement: Rebecca Economac, Nicole Minor-Rose. The commission denied the following petitions for reinstatement: David Garcia, Callie Mandarino. The commission adopted the proposed decision in the matter of Nels Mickelson. The commission discussed consent calendar item number 30, Nicole Molyneux, and remanded the matter back to the Committee on Credentials. The commission discussed consent calendar item number 29, Oscar Mendez, and accepted the recommendation of the Committee of Credentials. Commissioner Martin recused herself on the following consent calendar items: number 13, Jason Crawford; number 14, Melissa Farrow; number 24, Sarah Martin. Commissioner Barnes recused herself on consent calendar item number 88, Robert Duvall. Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo recused herself on consent calendar item number 98, Jennifer Smith. And that's the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hind. Item 1J is new business. The bi-monthly agenda is presented for information. Recording secretary, are there any audience presentations?
Yes, we have two. The first is Araceli Simeon. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hello, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Araceli Simeon, and I'm the director of the Parent Organization Network. I'm here today to speak about strengthening educator preparation to improve family engagement. Research has demonstrated that family engagement has a connection to improve outcomes for attendance, academics, social emotional skills, graduation rates, teacher satisfaction, and school improvement. However, educators are not exposed to meaningful training in pre-service, induction, or in-service, and often families struggle to feel engaged. The pandemic has reinforced the critical role of families in students' education. Moreover, the current state of our nation and social unrest highlights the need to rethink systems so we can balance power and opportunities for all. And one way to begin to transform systems and to overcome ambiguity is by transforming the relationships between educators and families by building trust and fostering conditions for reciprocal relationships to support student success. In July, my organization and our partners, Public Advocates and San Diego State University Center for Family, School, and Community Engagement released a report on the topic of family engagement training in pre-service programs in California. Thank you, Chair Sloan and Dr. Grenault-Schneier for agreeing to be interviewed. I'm pleased to share that the publication of the report resulted in a dialogue among our organizations and CTC staff. And this collaboration led to the development of a document titled Key Concepts on Parent Engagement Information for work groups to consider as standards are reviewed and revised. And the document was enclosed with a letter we submitted last week. The document seeks to align the practice of family engagement to the research and the spirit of federal and state laws. And to quote a California State PTA, what we want to move is the practice of family engagement from compliance to connection. We would like to publicly thank CTC staff led by Director Terry Clark and her team for being incredibly prompt and receptive and modeling the openness, two-way communication, positive collaboration, and transparency that we seek to achieve through the changes we propose in the document and the report. Also, we want to invite you to be part of a national family engagement pre-service consortium. This group aims to develop a framework for culturally responsive family engagement, and CTC is welcome to participate by designating a representative. And thank you, Dr. Sanding, for writing a letter of support so that our organizations could be part of this initiative. So we're certain that California will be considered a model in this area of work, and we look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Araceli, for coming and sharing that work. And is there another audience presentation?
Yes, Grace Harm. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hi, everybody. My name is Grace Harm, and I am the Student SCTA Liaison for the CTC, and I am currently a junior at California State Fullerton. I am very much looking forward to working with each and every one of you and relaying all the forward messages to the Student SCTA Board. And currently, just a little background of us, we have a lot of different committees going on, including Credentialing and Testing Committee, which I am a part of, Budgeting Committee, Immigrant Issues Committee, the 2020 U.S. Election Committee. So I'm looking forward to meeting with each and every one of you and talking with you. And I just wanted to, again, just introduce myself.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming, Grace. Very nice to meet you. Are there any other audience presentations?
That was the final presentation. Thank you.
And Commissioner Sandy, you are executive.
Thank you for the promotion, Madam Chair. I was hoping that someone might say this from the California Teachers Association, but I believe today this meeting might be the last meeting that Jane Robb is here as a representative for the CTA. Now, I've only heard this, so I don't want to be too definitive about it because we know she loves this work and she loves us, and we are irresistible. I know this. But she's been an extraordinary partner and thought partner, critical friend, good person to kick you in the hindquarters if you're just really off track. She's been a very valuable partner in a lot of the work that we've done for the last 9 years that I've been here. And I just want to take a moment thinking she might still be online to say, Jane, good luck in retirement. There's always going to be a seat in the front row over here for you. However, if you do want to come back and add your perspective to our deliberations. So anyway, and if I got this wrong and you're going to stick around, that's on me.
Oh, good. All right. I hope she can't stay away. Well, this isn't the last we see. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, before I adjourn, in the spirit of connection and how much we need connection at this moment and miss each other, I would like to give everyone just a very quick opportunity to say goodbye and well wishes. When we meet again, we will have had the election and many other things. So I will model goodbye and wishes. Parents, hang in there, hug your children, educators, get all the safe hugs that you can. Everybody unmute, please, and I'm going to quickly call on you. I just in order. Terry.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Oh, wrong Terry. Sorry.
That Terry?
Go.
Go, Clark. Terry Clark. Sorry.
It's Terry Jackson. You go.
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone, and just stay safe, stay healthy, and just take care of one another.
Terry Clark.
Bye, everyone. It was so good to see you all again. And Jane, we will definitely miss you. I see you're still on as an attendee. Stay safe, everybody.
Kevin.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe, everyone. And I just wish we're all together again soon.
David.
Well, thank you all. I got a text from Jane Robb that says, to say thank you to Mary for her kind comments. And looking forward to meeting you all in person someday.
All right, Bonnie.
It's good to see you all. Thank everyone. And especially I just want to thank our new student liaison. It was really nice to hear your voice at our meeting. And to everyone, just stay safe and see you next time.
Iday.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad to see everybody. And speaking of connections, I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready how much I miss from the old soul to Waterboy to our traditions that, having dinner, and how much I miss all of you, because that was the crux of it, right? Was being with you. So I hope everybody stays happy and safe, and, big changes around the corner.
Janie.
Blessings on all of our work. Stay well.
Thank you. Alicia.
Well, this is sad. We never got to make it to our baseball game as a commission that we talked about for so many years. But someday we'll all get back together and we'll do it, even when the commission will look different. I was hoping we could all dress up for this meeting since we're going to be missing Halloween together, but I just happen to have a few things laying around, like this cape and wig. So I'll say goodbye in costume. Next time we could all do a theme.
I like it. Mary.
Stay strong and hopeful, friends.
Michael.
I'm looking forward to the election and to the inauguration to follow. So I hope I'll be able to go in person.
Marisol.
Goodbye, everybody. Stay safe, be well. And I have to report, I got the best text. My sub said that everything worked out beautifully on Zoom today. Big relief.
Kirsten.
Yeah, everyone stay safe. Take a deep breath, take a walk. And yeah, I was going to dress up today too and wear my Wonder Counselor outfit, but I didn't. But I got my bracelet on, so stay strong.
Corey.
I just want to tell you all that it's just been a pleasure to be here in these meetings. You all have just been so warm and open and just forthcoming, and I appreciate this space. So I just hope all of you have a great break until we meet next time. And I know that we're doing great work, and it's just I'm happy I'm a part of something like this. So I hope you all stay blessed and healthy and safe.
Thank you. Andrew.
Well, my hopeful act is the act of making plans. And plans are sometimes one of the most valuable things, I think. So I hope that we can make plans for the time when we're going to be together in person, that we make plans to be with loved ones. We simply make plans.
Okay. Cindy.
I want to say thank you to everybody for being such a welcoming group, and the powerful work that this commission does has always inspired me, but it's really great to be a part of it. And I'll go back to the poem I started with. I won't read it again, but the poem was by Maya Angelou and it's called Continue. So may we continue collectively, the human spirit being the light that guides us.
Kate.
Well, you're already in my home because you saw my guy come in and bring me a cup of coffee midway. What a great thing. I just wanted to wish everyone safe, sane, and healthy. And you might not be able to see it well, but this is from me, my daughter, and my granddaughter. We just did the Halloween patch. So I just wanted you to say happy fall for everyone, and we'll be together soon.
Oh. Johanna.
Oh, I also want to give best wishes to everyone to stay safe through the fire season and through everything else. And I also want to echo the thanks to Ms. Jones. You have already shown what an incredible additional value it is to have a student voice, and the dedication you clearly showed to digging into these not easy agenda items was really productive for all of us. So I really appreciate that. I also can't wait to see you all in person. Stay busy. Thank you to all of the educators who are in this group and who are listening in, the educators to be, for everything that you're doing for our school children. It's really, really appreciated. And I know that's not just by me, but by my many, many, many friends who are appreciative of all of your work. Take care.
Erin.
Hi, everyone. Had to find my unmute button. I'm going to echo Commissioner Hartwig's sentiment as I'm sitting here listening to my 9-year-old attend her PE class in the other room, and my wall is shaking because she's doing some serious jumping jacks or something over there. I'm kind of scared to go look, but it was a pleasure joining for this meeting today, and really wonderful to hear all the great conversation. So stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you all in person soon.
Thanks. Hi, Zhu.
I did not expect that. I just want everybody to stay safe, be strong. See you next time when we're in person.
Yes, thank you. Rhonda, you two go together.
Yes, we do. I just want to say thank you to all of the commissioners and my coworkers here at the commission. It's a pleasure to do the work that we're doing, and I am grateful to be part of this team. Everyone stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie.
Do I go again? Is there another Bonnie?
Oh,
Mary.
Yeah.
I thought we'd missed you. Sorry.
Lynn.
I just wanted to say what. Oh, sorry, I just want to say what fantastic time I've had over the past 7 months is coming on board with the commission. And in my 12 years in state government, I've never experienced such a dedicated and passionate group of people. So I'm really glad to be part of what you're all doing.
Thank you. Amy.
Hi, everyone. And always so good to hear all of you and be with you in this space for these meetings. And Corey, I just want to let you know that we have started for the first time ever direct office hours for candidates. We've been holding these office hours to talk directly with candidates around performance assessment issues now for a month or two, and it's been really enlightening. And so hearing you ask for more connection and more support, we're working on it. We hope to expand it, and we look forward to other ways that we can be doing that. But tell all your friends, you can talk to us every week on Wednesday afternoons.
Michelle.
I'll just echo what's already been said, but thank you all for your support always of the staff. And like Aaron, I have been gone for 2 days and left my 4th grader to his own devices. I'm a little afraid to find out what has or hasn't been done when I get home this afternoon. But thank you all. Stay safe and have a wonderful weekend.
And Gil, I think you're going to close us off.
Actually, Gil is still having technical difficulties, so
Forgot
he's
me.
giving us a wave. Thumbs up.
Give us a wave.
You forgot me, Tina.
Back. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for a great meeting. I now adjourn the October 2020 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. The next meeting is on December 3rd and 4th, 2020. See you then.